Councillors, can I have your attention, please? I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and reconvene the meeting following early consideration of a confidential item. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Council's governance rules. It is important that members of the public present in the gallery respect the setting and do not disrupt the meeting in any way. We will commence the meeting with the following reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. Thank you, councillors. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional lands of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We have three apologies for tonight's meeting, one from Councillor Tammy Radford, one from Peter Benezik, General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment, and one from Wayne Mack, General Manager of Customer, People and Performance. Moving into the minutes of the previous meetings, can I have a motion please to adopt the minutes of the previous meetings as listed, and they are the General Council meeting from the 20th of May 2024 and the Town Planning meeting on the 3rd of June 2024. I see Councillor Graham Moore. Do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Carol Ryan. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Before we begin in earnest, councillors, are there any declarations of interest in relation to tonight's agenda items? I see no declarations of interest. Thank you. Moving into town planning reports, item 6.1.2, proposed Cardinia Planning Scheme Amendment C278 CARD, new environmentally sustainable development, local policy clause 22.11 and associated changes to the municipal strategic statement. The officer recommendation is that council receive and consider all submissions, including late submissions, made to proposed planning scheme amendment C278 CARD and refer all submissions to a planning panel to be appointed by the Minister for Planning. Do I have a mover for this item? I see Councillor Stephanie Davies.
Excuse me. Thanks, Mayor. I wish to move the officer recommendations as listed, please.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor Davies to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Councillors, there is a detailed process that goes into any changes to local policy and the municipal strategic statement. At this phase for planning scheme amendment C278, we now are considering submissions and then collating them and presenting them to a planning panel to consider under the Minister for Planning. I'm really excited about the environmentally sustainable development local planning policy and this being implemented in our planning scheme, and I really do just wish to harp on about it a bit, just in terms of transparency, to show that there's real integrity in our planning scheme and this is part of the process. So tonight, I'll be seeking council support to progress and progress the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll go to your seconder, Councillor Jeff Springfield.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Councillor Davies, for moving this important item. Just a quick few words off the report. And look, Amendment C278 proposes to introduce an environmentally sustainable development, ESD, local planning policy into the Cardinia planning scheme. The policy will ensure specified developments achieve best practice in environmental sustainability from the design stage through to the construction and operation. It is also proposed to make changes to the municipal strategic statement to support the new policy. And as such, this only applies for new residential developments within the predetermined thresholds and will strengthen Council's position to consider principles of environmentally sustainable development through the statutory planning process. And it is important when we come to new developments like this, and it'll be often directed towards big developments, you know, it's business out there. We live in this commercial environment, and developers will, it's their business to necessarily get things over the line as cheap and efficiently as they can. We need to have these little steps in the planning process to go, you know, to be able to help determine and help ensure that environmentally sustainable practices are met into the future so that the house that's built tomorrow is going to last 30, 40 years into the future and still meet the standards when it comes to environmental sustainability, when it comes to its heat retention, when it comes to its insulation, these types of elements, and double glazed windows, all these other things. So yes, I support this, and I look forward to hoping the rest of our councillors do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to the original mover, Councillor Davies, to sum up, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Springfield. I've nothing further to add about seeking councillors' endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll now put item 6.1.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Moving into general reports. Item 6.2.1, appointment of community asset committees for recreation reserves. The officer's recommendation is that council make appointments to the respective rec reserve community asset committees listed in the report. Do I have a mover for this item? I see Councillor Springfield.
I move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Springfield to speak first.
Thank you. Mayor, this is a process here where we're formally appointing these community asset committees that already have elections, their determinations within their own committees of management to present the table of people that we see here. I thought it was probably prudent that I put my hand up, seeing as I chaired two of these AGMs, being Worrell Recreation Reserve and the Chandler Recreation Reserve. And so, yeah, this is a formal process where council formally, endorses and supports the appointment of these members. But look, I'll just take a moment to thank the members as listed. They are people that most of them are people I know have done this for a long time. And without these volunteers out there that help run our community asset committees, to help run our sporting clubs, we wouldn't have the great culture that we have in these groups for the rest of the community without having dedicated volunteers like this. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. There are 15 recreation reserves within Cardinia Shire managed by community asset committees, 12 of the reserve managed by council appointed community asset committees. 3 are Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Change DECA owned, with council appointed as committee of management. Members of the reserve community asset committees are elected annually, as previously said, and upon election require appointment by council resolution under the Local Government Act. And this report obviously outlines Chandler, Lang Lang and Worrell Reserve. I also want to acknowledge and thank each of those appointees. Many of those names we've known for many years. Some are new, which is great to see that renewal, but also we note the long-term service. So thank you to all those people listed for your service on those committees. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Springfield to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen. Just in summary, again, I would like to thank the volunteers that put their hands up to help manage and run these committees. It's not an easy job being the secretary, being the treasurer, and having to try and deal with all the elements that may face these groups and the elements that face these reserve committees when it comes to escalating costs for maintenance. And all those sort of little elements they have to, try and conduct. And often many user groups that are part of one, facility that they have to sort of meet the expectations of and coordinate the needs for. So I really thank everyone involved that we're appointing for this committee today. Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. We'll now put item 6.2.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving to item 6.2.2, Pakenham Revitalisation Main Street Design. The officer recommendation is that council endorse the design for stage 1 of the Pakenham Revitalisation project, delegate authority to the CEO to finalise design details as listed, and note the commitment to support local businesses throughout this project through planned engagement activities, as well as requirements of the successful tenderer to develop a disruption mitigation plan that addresses key concerns for local businesses. Can I have a mover, please? I see Councillor Carol Ryan. Do you want to move the officer's recommendation or an alternate?
Yes, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Colin Ross. Councillor Ryan to speak first.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The officer's recommendation on this, the council endorsed the design of stage 1 of the Pakenham Revitalisation Project. Delegated authorities to the CEO to finalise such details as placement of bins, bike racks, seating and road and footpath pavements, infrastructure locating, catering for flexibility of placement, managing complexities with services as the project progresses. Note the commitment to support local businesses throughout the project through planned engagement activities, as well as requirements of the successful tender to develop a disruptive mitigation plan that addresses key concerns for local businesses, including access to the businesses for customers and deliveries, stage construction with timeframes, utilise alternative methods to mitigate business disruptions like night works where practical, minimum disruptive work from September to December, noise and dust suppression. That note council would continue to be updated as this project progresses through to the final design of the construction. The Pakenham Revitalisation Project is a council project, priority project, a long-term plan to deliver a vibrant and active Pakenham that is safe and accessible to everyone. The overreaching strategy to achieve council's long-term plan, the public realm strategy, was endorsed by council on the 20th of November 2023. This report seeks approval for design of the first stage of the 12-stage plan to the revitalisation Pakenham that outlines in Figure 1. This is a very extensive project and it's been a long time coming. So I'm thrilled to see the final design plan being presented for stage 1 of the Pakenham Revitalisation Project. I've enjoyed engaging the community with the multiple consultations and informed information sessions over the last year. Council completed extensive community engagement in 2023 to determine key concerns and visions for the future of Pakenham. The main feedback included from the community, improved lighting and safety, improved accessibility with wider footpaths, better connective with crossings and footpaths, improved landscaping and street furniture such as bench seating and shades, improved outdoor dining opportunities, potential for future events and activities around the main street. I'm pleased to see how the community feedback has directly influenced the future of and the look of our main street, and how council has worked to address as many of the community concerns as possible. Safety committee, the Safety Committee of Pakenham projects, ageing well pop-ups we had coffee with a cop that gave the community opportunities to have discussions, Main Street business engagement, and my weekly engagement with the traders. Part of the background is wider, more accessible pathways, two-way road and new pavement and curb, and 28 parallel parking bays, 9 raised pedestrian crossings, 24 trees, 22 seats, 107 pedestrian safe bollards, 20 light poles with feature lighting display, 4 bike racks, 22 bins, new accessible drinking fountain with a drinking bowl for dogs. Yakaboo status will remain in the heart of the main street, which is Mr. Yakaboo and Blue. Numerous garden beds, speed limit change from 50 to 40. These are the things that were discussed and that will be part of stage 1.
Thanks.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to your seconder, Councillor Colin Ross.
I reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll open this up. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this? I see Councillor Davies first.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak briefly and direct my comments around the Main Street traders. Specifically, I've certainly had very strong words with the staff about ensuring that their Christmas trade is respected and that their most profitable time of year being December, at this time that their businesses and livelihoods is protected as much as possible, despite the construction period, including this time. And whilst a commitment is not in the report, I have asked for assurance that no parking will be closed off or walkways are maintained, noise levels are assessed and managed, and that no power or water is reduced during the Christmas trade period. Councillors are aware of the necessity to support local businesses, and whilst detailed construction planning isn't ready yet, it's very much on the forefront of our minds. So this December, I may no longer be a councillor, and none of the current councillors are guaranteed that either, but our traders are going to be there and they're trying to survive. We all know retail has been hit very hard in recent times. Any new council will know that it's on the record that the current council is asking questions to ensure heightened, committed community engagement and support of local businesses throughout the construction period. And so for that reason, I'm really excited to vote and support and keep this one going, because Pakenham is going to, it desperately needs a bit of a facelift, and I'm glad that we're able to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll give Councillor Ross the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Just speaking about this notice of motion about the stage 1 of the Pakenham revitalisation Main Street design. Pakenham Main Street desperately needs a fresh look. Unfortunately, it's got to look tired and doesn't really give people an inviting feel when you go into it. Many developments have stalled in the area, private ones, and that's left holes in the area where there's vacant shops. Graffiti comes when there's vacant shops. There's areas that people don't use anymore. And this is desperately needed, a fresh look that people will feel more invited to come into. This stage 1 doesn't lock in every single thing, but it locks in stage 1. And there was different views on all this. So I must say this process started with the community consultation. There was a lot of traders and tenants that were disillusioned in the beginning because they just didn't really know where they fitted in or how they fitted into the consultation. I must say this definitely changed, and they became more engaged as time went on, and they actually felt like, as some of my fellow councillors shared, got more engaged and felt part of the whole thing. So it took a little bit longer, which I believe community consultation, if it takes longer, sometimes you get a better result at the end of it because more people get heard. By redeveloping and doing something in this space, we're going to freshen the whole place up. It'll give it a really good feel. This is the main street of Cardinia Shire. It is our most populous area. It's the most widely used area, and it should be a lampstand in our area. And with the revitalisation and the money we have, stage 1 will begin that process. Stage 2 will go into other options around getting some traffic flow reports back, looking at how we work with that, what the different options are and which one might work properly. I sincerely hope with the revitalisation of this area, it will encourage people to want to invest in Pakenham again. They'll want to come there and put their shop in there rather than feeling like, well, I'm going to wait to see what's happened. We take the lead, we get this done, we make it feel fresh, we make people feel really proud to want to live in Pakenham, and they want to go down the street. So I support this. I can't wait to see what it looks like. It looks really good. electronic form, but I know there's a huge difference between looking at things electronically and actually walking down and physically looking at something. So anyway, I support this. I hope my fellow councillors will support this too. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. We'll now go back to the mover, Councillor Ryan, to sum up.
Thank you to Councillor Ross and Councillor Davies for your support. This has been a project of since I came into council that needed to have that discussion, and the team that we've all been working with on this project has been absolutely fantastic. We've had some hiccups, but we've achieved to overcome those hiccups. Part of with the traders too was continual consultation with them, and that is an ongoing, which was requested by councillors, that there would be an ongoing consultation with the traders, bringing them along this journey, because they are part of what is going to happen where they are servicing our community. If you look on the website, it will show you the old Pakenham look and what the potential could look like. So it's like a facelift. So it's quite interesting. So go on the website and have a look. In the first stage and funding stage for Pakenham Revitalisation Project, are set to make a significant difference in the transitioning Pakenham as it moves from suburb on the fringe of the metropolitan Melbourne servicing residents and commuters to a major activity centre that will be a destination for thousands of new residents and workers travelling to and from the area. Pakenham Activity Centre is projected to service 24,756 additional people in 2041. This does not include people that will be travelling to Pakenham in the future or to visit and spend time here. I'm just really proud that we're finally getting something done, even if it's stage one, and you will start seeing some things start to happen. As far as the traffic goes, that there will be some disruptions, but you may not be able to drive all your cars down the main street, but there is parking behind the shops, so the trading will still be able to be operating during that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Just before we put this one to a vote, I do just want to say I am really proud that we've got to this stage as well. I've worked really hard on it. You've worked really hard. All councillors have, but I think it's really pleasing that we're here. Obviously, the work starts now in the community. You know, we're really keen to see what's to come. I think it is important to note publicly that the project will commence in September this year, but only with low impact works till we get through that Christmas period, and then full construction will start in January. I know that was something we've spoken about in briefing, and whilst it isn't a commitment per se as part of the Officer recommendations, it is something that we've spoken about. So there it is again. Construction is projected to commence in September with low impact works before the peak Christmas trade period. Full construction will then commence in January 2025. And overall, the significance of this project for Pakenham, which has been crying out for more investment, I think is fantastic. So enough from me. We'll now put item 6.2.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving on to item 6.2.3, renaming of Officer Recreation Reserve to Rob Porter Recreation Reserve. The Officer recommendation is that Council note that no objections were received to the renaming proposal and resolve to rename the Officer Recreation Reserve the Rob Porter Recreation Reserve. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation. That is, one, note that no objections were received to the proposed renaming of the Officer Recreation Reserve. 2, formally resolve to rename the reserve the Rob Porter Recreation Reserve. And 3, forward the resolution to Geographic Names Victoria to formal approval and publication in the Government Gazette.
Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor Owen to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Mr. Robert Porter passed away on Christmas Day last year in 2023. after providing a lifetime of service to the officer community. There was a notice of motion 1088, which was considered at the February council meeting, proposing that the officer rec reserve be renamed in honour of Mr. Porter. All councillors supported that, so thank you all councillors for supporting that. Subsequently, the council resolved at its April council meeting to undertake a process of community consultation regarding the proposed renaming. Once again, it was all supported by all councillors present. The process for naming or renaming places and features are set out in the naming rules for places in Victoria. The statutory requirements for naming roads, features, localities are established under provisions of the Geographic Place Names Act 1998, and these are very descriptive, and there is, obviously proper processes. These rules require any naming proposals to first be submitted for approval in principle by the Register of Geographic Names. When naming proposals involve the use of the names of individuals that are deceased, the rules state that these names should only be applied no less than 2 years after. In this regard, Geographic Names Victoria has been approached regarding the renaming proposal, detailing the extraordinary and exemplary service that Mr. Porter had provided to the reserve and the officer community. GNV have responded to advise that the exemption request has been approved, and subject to complying with the remaining naming principles, council is clear to proceed with the use of Mr. Porter's name. Thank you to council officers who have engaged, particularly with Mrs. Carol Porter, OAM, who have contacted Carol regarding the suggested renaming. Mrs. Porter has consulted with her 2 sons and has advised that the family is pleased and honoured to consent to the renaming of the reserve, and have requested that the reserve name be Rob Porter Recreation Reserve. Mrs. Porter has been advised that as this suggested name is the family's preference, it will be the same suggested as part of the renaming process. So the community consultation exercise has been completed and no objections to the renaming have been received. Council is therefore now able to resolve on this matter and forward the renaming proposal to the Office of Geographic Names for formal approval and gazettal. So I'll leave it there and I'll let my other councillor colleagues to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. We'll go to your seconder, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I thank Councillor Owen for moving this motion, bringing it forward, and just want to acknowledge his strong connection that he had with Rob Porter and the Porter family, through many years. So, and I'd just like to say a couple of quick words. I fully support this, but as I mentioned before, with the asset reserve committees, the backbone of what drives our communities and makes them better and stronger is volunteers. It's through people that are willing to step up and volunteer. And I can't think of anyone that I've known in my time for 2 terms on council that's done that more than Rob Porter. From day one that I came onto this council, and myself and Councillor Owen shared the Rangers ward as multi-member wards. Rob was knocking on my door saying, we need this at officer, we need that. He was out there mowing the lawns himself, getting everything prepared up and advocating strongly for development and for the best outcomes for the teams, for the kids playing through there, tirelessly working towards it. It was an honour to know someone like Rob Porter. I didn't know him well. I just knew him through through my role here at council, but, he was a exemplary human, of what you can do working together, and so important of our role in council is supporting those who support their community so strongly, because we are all community members. We are all here together to look at that, to create these best outcomes that we can. And so I think tonight, through the process, and I thank Councillor Ross for first bringing this to the council meeting a few months ago as well. We are doing that, and it'll be an honour to see this in the future, many years to come, to see this named after Rob Porter. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I think when you describe Rob Porter's dedication to the reserve, it can only be that he he will always rest in that place. I mean, every blade of grass in that place probably got mowed and tended to probably 1,000 times by Rob. And his family shared just how much dedication and love he had for the reserve and for those who played on the reserve. It was a great joy of his. And I just think that there's no more fitting compliment that could be made than naming it after him. That everyone in the future, when we're all not round anymore, will go to the Rob Porter Reserve and know that this really great man on that reserve did amazing work. So I just think it's absolutely fitting. I think it's just a really lovely reminder, and I think that it will help people who have such a fond memory of Rob. To every time they go there, they will feel like he's still part of the reserve, which he is, because he's laid his hands on it. He treated it like a family member. I know Carol and his sons at the funeral spoke about his undying dedication. The fact that Carol went down there at 2 a.m. to tell him to get off the tractor, and with the car lights shining across the area, he just will always be there. And anyone who goes there who knew Rob will just be honoured to call it the Rob Porter Reserve. Thank you, my fellow councillors, for sharing bits of their stories.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Brett Owen to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all the other councillors, and thank you to all councillors who supported this over the journey of this process. Obviously, as you will talk later on, Mayor, there was a number of OAMs announced in the King's birthday, and Rob was one of those. And Rob, in my opinion, is probably a once-in-a-lifetime person that we come across in our life. And definitely, Rob was that sort of person. I do note the support that it has received from the Austrian District Community Association, obviously the Officer Rec Reserve Community Management, Volunteer Community Management. They're very supportive of this, and also obviously the Porter family. We note that it's Carol's wishes to name it the Rob Porter Recreational Reserve, but it does also acknowledge the commitment of the wider Porter family. And I just remember, stories that Rob used to tell me, and yes, it was, at the funeral, Carol did talk about going down there in the early hours of the morning to tell Rob to come home. It's enough, but also the police, seeing there's lights in the middle of an oval, what's going on in the middle of the night, in the early hours of the morning, Rob's there and the police are saying, checking to see, what's going on. So well done, and I'll move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We'll now put item 6.2.3 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.2.4, Youth Hub Options Paper. The officer recommendation is that Council endorse the 5 options listed to be further assessed as part of the Youth Hub redevelopment. Can I have a mover, please? I see Councillor Carol Ryan.
I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Colin Ross. I'll go to Councillor Ryan to speak first.
Through you, Mayor. The recommendation is due to the issues that we've run into with the Youth Hub. The the options are to build the Youth Hub in James Street as planned, expand redevelopment My Place, build a new facility at the PB Ronald or redevelop an existing building, build a new facility at the Point or redevelop an existing building, explore opportunities within the vicinity of Pakenham Major Activity Centre. The Youth Hub project was inundated by 2019 and aimed to relocate and expand the youth services through investment from the Victorian Government's Growing Suburbs Fund and the Australian Government's Department of Health and Ageing, partnering with multiple agencies, including major partnerships with Headspace, Oakwood School. The project sought to provide place-based holistic support to young people. Construction began in 2022, but was halted in 2023 due to structural issues and the builder going into liquidation. In line with good governance, council officers are now exploring options to complete the project. Cardinia Shire's population growth, service access and higher than average rates of social economic complexity underscores the need for the expansion of the youth services. The integrated service model at the Youth Hub includes mental health, education, drug and alcohol counselling, multicultural support, employment, housing services in partnerships with multiple agencies. Officers have considered several options, including maintaining the current facilities, recommending or rebuilding at the current site, or construction at a new facility elsewhere. This process left 5 variable options requiring further assessment. Councillors were briefed on the options and endorsed to sort to enable further assessment of these options using criteria, identifying a preferred option, detailing the implications, the cost, the estimates, and the risk and timeline. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. We'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ryan, for withdrawing this item and moving it. This all started years ago with a bus that was purchased by previous council who saw the need of to be able to provide services and care, personal care to the youth. The state government and the federal government didn't do it. Council didn't do it. But this council identified at the time there was an urgent need for this in this area as a growing population. The bus was purchased initially, and so it could travel round to all different areas in Cardinia Shire. But as we grew and we grew from 30,000 to 40,000 to 50 to 100,000, we need something bigger. We need to provide all of the services so they can come out here. And what you need is you need space. So in the end, council went and purchased the Main Street Kinder, and then we refurbed that to make that into the My Place that it is today. But that's been outgrown many times, and we need more services to come out. And we need spaces for them to come out because they don't have the affordability to go and purchase a place out here. But if we provide a space, they will come. On the day that My Place opened, I think there was something like 14 or 15 services came out for the first time and visited that place and came out ever since. Unfortunately, the site, which was long planned and there was a lot of money put towards, hasn't worked out, which is really, really sad because it looked absolutely amazing. But the most important thing with this is there's some options on the table. We want to make sure that the services are provided for our community, particularly our youth. We need our youth team who do an amazing job connecting with the youth to have a really safe and inviting place for them to come to. It will come down to dollars and cents, but there is many options there at hand. And I'm sure that we'll come up with something that's really inviting, that youth feel safe and they'll feel like it's a home they can come to, particularly when they're sort of working their way through the early part of life, which can always be very difficult. Anyway, I look forward to seeing these options expand out further to find out what they truly mean and how much they're going to cost, and that we can build the best thing for the youth and the youth team to be able to help our youth in future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Colin Ross. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. My previous councillors for speaking to this. Look, I support this endorsement. Look, it is unfortunate, as we've spoken to, that we've gotten here with the current Youth Hub development. It was an exciting project. But unfortunately, as we've seen with several projects in this period that were sort of went out and for tender before we had the whole pandemic crisis and the cost of living, the inflationary crisis that's hit a lot of building firms. So unfortunately, the building that was doing this has come undone. And at that point, there's escalating costs. I think is a really good point now to really investigate what is the best option for delivering for our youth. in the area, and we recognise how important it is. But we also recognise, our financial constraints. So we want to make sure what we do now, compared to the decision that we thought was best in 2019, is going to be the best bang for buck to get boots on the ground and do what we can, to support our youth services into the future. So I really welcome this. There's no decision being made tonight. This is just the recommendation towards several options that have been identified as the most viable to go out for community consultation and for further investigation. And I look forward to seeing what comes back. But I think this is a good process of due diligence for us to undertake this now at this point in time. So I thank the officers involved for putting this together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I'm going to head back to the mover, Councillor Carol Ryan, to sum up.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for your support, my fellow councillors. We still have the partnerships of all the outer services. They're still on board. They're still keen to stay with us. And the Victorian government allotted $3 million from the Growing Suburbs Fund to relocate the existing My Place youth facility to a new site and expand the services in multi-used facility. The Australian government contributed $1.5 million through the Department of Health and Ageing Community. They still are on the table, and so it just means that there's just setbacks now, and I'm looking forward to the officers coming back with the follow-up from this. And I think it's important with our youth that we need more services out there for them. They need to be feeling that they're part of our community and that they can contribute. And there's a lot of things they can contribute to in our society that a lot of people don't realise. And I mean, I've seen some of their work, their artwork. They're making candles and making all these different perfumes to go with the candles. And it's a mess, but learning cooking, learning sewing, learning all the tools of survival. And that's what My Place does, and that's what the Youth Hub will do with more and more services. So I look forward to this coming back and a decision to be made where we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. We'll put item 6.2.4 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving to item 6.2.5, appointment of authorised officer. The officer recommendation is that Council resolve to appoint Mr Pete Courtney as an authorised officer pursuant to section 1474 of the Planning and Environment Act 1997. Can I have a mover of this item, please? See Councillor Springfield.
I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? I see Councillor Kay Cameron. Councillor Springfield to speak first, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Section 147. 4 of the Planning Environment Act of 1997 allows council to appoint staff members to conduct enforcement when breaches of the planning scheme occur. When breaches of the scheme are detected, certain investigative powers may be exercised, such as entering land without consent, applying for search warrants, issuing infringements, or issuing charge sheets. Only designated appointees may exercise these powers. So, look, this is a process that we need to go through in order to appoint a new staff member to the compliance services team. I really hope there's nothing for them to do in the coming months and years. The less we have to be active in this space. But we are a very large council, a large geographic area here, and we do receive numerous complaints from residents and such that need to be investigated at times. And so this is a process. And so, I welcome Pete to the team and hope he does a great job. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to Councillor Kay Cameron as a seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Council routinely appoints staff members to undertake enforcement. Typically, the CEO directly appoints staff, but section 188(2) subsection C of the Planning and Environment Act does not allow this function to be delegated to the CEO or to committees, and as such, council resolutions are required to appoint the staff member for this purpose. So it is with that in mind that it's recommended that the named staff member, Pete Courtney, be appointed as authorised officer for the purpose of conducting enforcement powers under the Planning and Environment Act 1997. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. We will open this up. Are there any other councillors who would like to discuss this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Springfield to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Then we'll put it straight to a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving to item 6.2.6, 2024-2025 Festival and Events Grant Program. The officer recommendation is that council approve 58 applications under the Festival and Events Grants Program to the value of $254,971. Can I have a mover, please? I see Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Colin Ross. Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it's great to see this this grants pool, this process being overprescribed once again, and it's a really effective way to help our community support each other. Again, we're talking about volunteers tonight, but these guys that put on community events, it's one of the greatest things, some really fabulous events listed in there that bring community together. And it happens across the whole spread of where Cardinia Shire is, from the hills up to where I am, right down south to Councillor Cameron's area and everything in between. So it is really great to see the wonderful events that have put applications in. And I look forward to coming in and joining in some of the festivities once they are supported down the track. I'll leave it there for now and just go to my seconder. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Springfield, for withdrawing this item and moving it. I must say this is a really, really good initiative that council runs. There's many councils that don't give any money to festivals and grants, and people don't realise that until you're in a different shire or council. This is one of the programs that actually assists groups who could not probably run their festivals or their events without some support. With council being able to give back some of their ratepayers' money back in a way that helps them to run their different functions and events and festivals. It's a wonderful way, particularly in the seeding stage when they're starting off and they need to raise money and they've got no money to start off with. We had our volunteers dinner the other night, and most of those people are involved in events and festivals that they run through their different groups, and all the thousands and thousands of volunteer hours that people set aside. The very least council can do is to support them in the festival and grants funding stream. It's great to see so many. I think if you have a look at Cardinia Shire in the last probably 30 years, some people will attest what we used to have and now what we have now in the way of different colour and different events that were never here before. I think it's a wonderful thing. It makes people feel really, really inclusive. After seeing 16,000 new residents over my time on council become Australian citizens and choose Cardinia Shire to be their home, it's part of a welcoming way that we can embrace whatever their backgrounds are, and hopefully if they bring their groups, they'll share with us some of the colour that they bring that makes them Australian. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. It's an honour to see these festival grants being offered to our community. I note there is 58 on the list that have been approved and 3 that haven't been approved. And it's amazing to me to think that our community is so multicultural these days, that there are so many different diverse festivals we have within our communities, from all the way down to Lang Lang and all the way up to Enmore area and across to Bunyip. So it's really an honour to be involved in supporting these groups and funding these events, because they are very important to our community to get out there and bring something back to our community. There's nothing better than having a festival or a show, for instance, have operating within our council community, and being involved. And so therefore this is one way that we can as councillors support those groups, because most of them, well, they all are volunteer groups of our community, and supporting our volunteers is very important to do. So it's I followed this through all the way. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Springfield to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, as I mentioned earlier, we have been overprescribed for applications. You know, the draft budget, which will hopefully become the adopted budget a bit later on, had allocated for 255,000, which is a slight increase from last year. But we've got, about approximately 340,000 applications. So in saying that, just in closing, I just want to acknowledge, I think while it's beneficial to have a lot to choose from, there is some people that will miss out, and there's going to be a number of the applicants that may get slightly less funding in order for us to spread it out. So I do hope everyone is happy with the results afterwards, but I do acknowledge that not everyone will be within this recommendation will be funded to the full extent that they had requested, because there is more funding applications and there is budget to accommodate. So, but withstanding that, again, I really appreciate and thank all the volunteers out there in the community groups that put their hand up to apply for this and to put together events, because the funding we allocate only makes up a portion of what it takes. It takes a lot of man hours, takes a lot of other funding to run many of these events. And it really is some of the highlights of our local communities to participate in these events as they proceed. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. We'll now put item 6.2.6 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving on to item 6.2.7, Environmental Health Contract Extension. The officer recommendation is that Council approves the 2-year extension to Environmental Health Services contract for Council's current contractor, Kernow Environmental Services Proprietary Limited. Can I have a mover for this item, please? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I confirm I wish to move the officer recommendations as listed in the report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I won't elaborate on this matter, and we'll just confirm to Council that I seek to move the officer recommendations as tabled. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Colin Ross.
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Davies to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for seconding. Councillors, I seek your vote of support in endorsement per the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll now put the officer recommendation to item 6.2.7 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Item 6.3.1, amendments to governance rules. The officer recommendation is that Council approve the recommended amendments to the governance rules and adopt the attached amended governance rules document. And thanks Mr. Tony O'Hara for his submission and suggestions. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to move the officer recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder, please? We're going to let this item lapse. I see Councillor Owen. Councillor Davies to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen. So whilst it may be a long meeting and there's a lot of content, this is very, very important stuff. The governance rules, how the elected council behaves and the mechanism around us about how do we run the council, what rules do we have, what tools do we have available in meetings. And the rules that are in place currently were initially adopted in August 2020 as a requirement of the Local Government Act. They've been reviewed and amended 2 years ago and to make provision for conduct via electronic mechanisms. But the suggested rules, which we are going to hopefully endorse tonight with a vote of support, they contain a lot of amendments that are really of substance, the meat on the bones, changes required by the Act, improved public transparency, a gender impact assessment, a human rights charter impact assessment, and improved procedures. Unfortunately, our neighbours at City of Casey lost their council, and Operation Sandon had a lot of recommendations in that, and these are all considered by staff and workshopped with council to result in new rules. So it's a very significant item and something that something is really complicated. But my view is that we are approaching the end of the term, and new council will come in and they will have better rules to structure them and to hopefully achieve great outcomes for our Shire. So things like notice of emotions at present, you can table 1-2 days before a council meeting, and that's going to be extended out to 2 weeks, which will encourage the councillors to use urgent business items or seek a mayoral approval for an urgent notice of motion. There are, I didn't prepare speaking notes to this, but there are a range of changes that I think are overwhelmingly positive. And as the Mayor mentioned, one of our most fantastic, one of our most engaged residents, who is a fantastic voice of reason and common sense, is Mr. Tony O'Hara, also a volunteer on how many committees, so many, and a 2-Mark Ward resident, has also provided feedback, and that's been considered too. So, councillors, I am seeking your support. I know no one likes rules, but they're there for a reason, and I think this is a good balance of meeting the unique intricacies of our Shire in line with the legislative requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Breton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davies. So the governance rules were initially adopted by Council in August 2020 as a requirement of the 2020 Local Government Act. The rules were last reviewed and amended in August 2022 to make provision for the conduct of council meetings via electronic means as required by amendments to the Act. So the suggested governance rules contained in these amendments is required by the changes to the Act. So it includes improved public transparency, a gender impact assessment, a human rights charter impact assessment, improved governance procedures, Operation Sandon recommendations, and reference to the 2024 council election, and can be summarised obviously in the report. I do welcome the increases to 14 days of the notice of motion. In my time of council, dropping a notice of motion on a Friday does not prepare councillors to be fully informed on the matters before them. Councillors may, have a weekend to look at, the information and make a decision on the Monday. I don't think that's good governance. Allow councillors to fully investigate the matters in the notice of motion. Yes, it can be dealt with by urgent business if required. So I think providing that sort of notice is important, transparent. It allows it to be published on the website, in the council agenda, that people know when they can access the website to look at the full agenda. Everything is going to be in that agenda, including notice of motions lodged by councillors 14 days beforehand. And I think it's important. Council meeting agendas to be delivered to councillors 10 days before the meeting. Currently, obviously it's less than that, and placed on council's website for 6 days prior to the meeting. I think that's really important, obviously making sure that's in place. Councillor questions to be lodged by 12 noon on the day of the meeting, currently 4 p.m, to align with the community question lodgement. Delete reference to drawing a lot of election of mayor if a vote is tied. That's not really democratic, pulling the successful candidate out by raffle. So I think it just provides obviously a better process, looking at obviously what the Act says, what best practice says, obviously looking at the other things that I talked about before. I just think it just provides councillors to be better informed when making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Davies to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen. Whilst we are soon to debate a budget, I'll never forget the first time I was on a council 3 years ago when we debated a budget, and one of my colleagues pulled came up with a an alternate motion, I think half an hour before the council meeting, and it was quite a significant one. And I think all councillors, as Councillor Owen says, it's not great governance if we're not able to consider things properly. So this is a set of rules about us doing our job better. So I welcome it. And look, there's always opportunity for tweaks, for modifications. And yeah, councillors, I do seek your support. I think that given nobody has lodged an alternate motion or really spoken in against it, I really hope that that you can put your vote to it in the interests of the council's future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, councillors. We'll now put item 6.3.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving to item 6.3.2, Proposed Community Local Law 2024. The officer recommendation is that council acknowledges the submissions received from the engagement conducted in March, and in accordance with section 73 subsection 6 of the Local Government Act 2020, resolves to alter the proposed community local law and conduct a further community engagement process with respect to the alterations, and consider this at a future council meeting. The alterations are in relation to point aboard hours and definition of building site work hours. Can I have a mover, please? I see Councillor Springfield.
I move the recommendation of the officers as listed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carol Ryan. Councillor Springfield to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As noted, we went out for community consultation a few months ago with this proposed new local law. Had a whole range of different laws that we sort of govern in this council, some updates, and it's as requirement as it should be. It requires extensive community consultation. Look, from that, there was a number of not objections, but a number of comments that came back from the consultation, and it has been resolved that we should make some amendments to that. And as part of that, even though the amendments are not huge, we are required to go out again for consultation because the amendments do they do trigger that response to the degree that they are, and so that's why we're here today. So I'm happy to support this to proceed with going back out to consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Ryan.
I have nothing else to add other than I'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? Councillor Bredown.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to those who've already submitted to the local law process. So I just want to acknowledge there's a very passionate resident in Officer North in the Dickey Road area that's really passionate about the agapanthus being an environmental weed in Cardinia Shire. It's a big issue to tackle. There is recommendations from the officers that at this stage not introduce a local law regarding planting or purchasing agapanthus, but to have more of a education approach. And I think that's probably the best way at this stage, considering it's a big issue. It's not solely confined to Cardinia, and it's a big issue to tackle. So I support what the officers are recommending is treating this as an education. And like already I've been briefed about what officers are prepared to do to improve the education, because it is a weed, but it's not classified as a weed, unfortunately, and you can still buy an agapantha at Bunnings. So I look forward to that, obviously progressing. But also I do note, obviously there's been concerns about real estate boards, also shopping trolleys, and also in relation to hoon behaviour. Hoon behaviour in mostly our industrial areas is a real problem, and Victoria Police have over the years come to councils, and Cardinia being one of them, asking for a local law to help manage, to help try and prohibit people from coming together and damaging our industrial areas. So I'm pleased that that is being investigated. So I look forward to this progressing. It is a big big issue to review local laws. So I look forward to this progressing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I'll go back to Councillor Jeff Springfield to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. In summary, although I do agree with Councillor Owen, I don't like the Agger Panthers either. They do like to spread, but it's not really appropriate to put into local laws, I don't think. But besides that comment, look, yeah, I am happy to support this, and look, I do encourage the community to read through and make comments, because these are local laws that are intended to reflect the community sentiment as best as possible. And so the more comments that we can get with this second round of community engagement on this, the better, I think. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. We'll now put this item up for a vote, 6.3.2. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving on to item 6.4.1, 2024-25 budget for adoption. The officer recommendation is that council resolves as follows. 1, the 24-25 budget, including the capital works program, be adopted for the purposes of section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020. And 2, the declaration and levy of rates and charges for the 24-25 financial year contained with the budget be adopted for the purposes of section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Stephanie Davies. Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of the most important tasks that we undertake each year, is the deliberation and the preparation of the budget. Every year we try and capture all the things that we need to deliver for this community. Officers work quite hard in the background to try and make all the numbers and the figures stack up. And I tell you, it's not an easy process. It hasn't been, especially these last few years, hasn't been the easiest process, because we do have escalating costs. We have escalating costs, and we have, a rate cap, which I don't oppose. The fact that the residents and myself can have a clear thought on what our rate increases are going to be. And once upon a time, they could have been whatever you could justify. But in a business type of proposal, it would have been an easier way to get things done, because you could justify what you needed. And we were seeing rates that would go up 5, 6, 7% year on year for residents, which is not sustainable, especially for, in this current climate that we have. So I do welcome that, but I just want to acknowledge that there are constraints that we feel year on year, and hence the budget we have before us is what has been prepared out of that. There is a number of items that have, capital works items have been pushed out further that we would have projected in previous years, that we would have wanted to deliver, that we acknowledge what needs to be delivered. But it is unfortunately, there is not the funds to deliver everything that we'd like to in this council, and in this unique council that we have. 1,280 square kilometres. That reaches from the Dandenong Ranges, the highly environmental significant areas and the green wedge zones there, down to our growth corridor, and then down south to all our farming communities and the environmentally significant green wedge areas down there that are so vitally important for Melbourne's food bowl. It is dynamic. It is unique. We have a lot of challenges. I know the challenges I face with roads and drainage in unsealed areas all across the hills. I know the challenges we face with infrastructure across the growth corridor for meeting the growing communities' aspirations and their services. So there is many challenges in this, but I think we've come up with a responsible and reasonable budget together, working through this over pretty much since we adopted the last one. We've been working on this for what this next one comes out, and that's what we'll be doing year on year moving forward. But look, I do move that we accept and adopt this budget as listed and put it out there for my fellow councillors to discuss. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to Councillor Davies as a seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I will confirm what Councillor Springfield has mentioned, that one of our jobs as a council is to prepare and adopt a rolling 4-year budget approved and adopted by 30th of June each year. So that's what we're trying to do tonight. I'll also point out that I believe that there are no alternate motions presented by any councillors. So I am working off the assumption here as I speak that all councillors are in support, as we have had many negotiations behind the scenes and we know we've got a job to do. And I've said this before, this is not a budget that secures any councillor a win next election, but it is equitable and fair. And I'm really proud that after 4 years collaborating together that we've been able to deliver this with our organisation. It's a financial plan, this budget, and it specifies which resources are required to fund council services and initiatives. We want to deliver high quality services and projects and infrastructure that are valuable to the community. And we also need to ensure that the council remains financially sustainable in the long term. We want to continue to invest in our future generations. This budget has been shaped through a lens of significant, targeted and continuing community support, services and investment. We have an allocation of $82.3 million towards a number of significant capital works projects. That number is significantly higher than the vast majority of Victorian councils, and for a council of our size, it's a tremendous figure. And this includes $64.7 million for asset renewals and upgrades. So a huge shire with ageing infrastructure. It takes huge investment, and I'm really proud of the work behind the scenes that is being done to secure continuity in assets. The council is adopting a 2.75% general rates revenue increase. This is in line with the Victorian government's rate cap. Whilst nobody likes paying their rates and you can forget your tax, it's because there's a little bit in every paycheck, your rates hurts you, but the 2.75% is much less than inflation. And the council works innovatively and adaptively. It truly is the most efficient level of government. The report and the budget includes an adoption of schedule of fees and charges for the next financial year. So if you go to Cardinia Life, if you hire a community room, you will see changes in your fees and charges in line with this budget. This is something that the council is endorsing. Of note, we did go to consultation, and I will confirm that $240,000 has been separately identified for the purpose of continuing access upgrade projects. These are projects to ensure that people with disabilities can access the same services the rest of the Shire use. So often it might be toilets, it might be rec ramps. I'll also acknowledge that a recommendation of up to $300,000 has been brought forward in the capital plan by way of a community capital grant to the Kuirup Netball Club, which will secure additional
Sorry, Councillor Davies, I might have to get a motion to give you a little bit more time to speak if you'd like to keep going. Councillor Owen and the seconder. Councillor Springfield, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
1 more minute, please, Councillor Davies.
I'll keep it quick. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. So as well as Kuirup Netball Club, council is also transferring $500,000 from our strategic reserves towards the cleanup costs of the remaining debris from our February 13 storm event. One council service that isn't probably appreciated until you need it is emergency management, and our emergency management team are very good at what they do. Unfortunately, we've had massive events each and every year, I think, fires, between the fires and the storms. So, councillors, there's been extensive consultation, extensive collaboration, a whole lot of negotiating, and I think that we have a budget here that we can proudly endorse together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, for your comments. We'll now open this up. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak? I see Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I think a lot of this has been covered, but I'd just like to congratulate the staff who have been very, very patient with us as councillors, delivering the information. We have debated it from last December. That's where we started. The community needs to understand how much is involved in this, the debate back and forward with different items from different line items. And then when we get to think that we've got to the right stage and we've got the right budget, we do it all again in April, where the building costs and things that happen, unforeseen changes to those figures, and it becomes quite a difficult situation to handle. And I want to thank the councillors for their input, and the staff for being so patient, as I said before, giving us information which is quite complicated. And of course, I want to thank the submitters, which we've had a fair few, and I want to assure them that we've looked at their submissions, we've discussed them, they've been through the normal ringer, as I call it, through our figures, and I think what we've got at the end of the day, which is a good balanced amount, a good balanced figure to support with the amount of funding we have against the amount of services we need to deliver. And so I support this budget, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak? I see Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, other councillors. I do note Councillor Springfield's comments that it has been very difficult. Some projects that have been talked about for a number of years have been pushed back or delayed because of the current situation we're in. I do acknowledge the 64 formal submissions council received, including 25 regarding the disability access and inclusion upgrades allocation. So I thank those people. Other submitters were regarding the Cure Up Netball Club, the Upper Beaconsfield Community Centre and Hall, also the Officer Soccer Club, also those regarding a pedestrian crossing in Timuck Valley Road. I just want to acknowledge, particularly access inclusion. They were very passionate, strong in their communications with council, and council has listened and amended the line items in the budget. So for the 24-25 year, we have 110,000 for the Curry Up Pool Pod, and also a 240,000 allocation for access upgrades, which the committee will oversee and nominate projects for that. And that's going to be, that 240 is for the next 4 years, 240, 240, 240. So that is a great outcome. I know Councillor Radford was very passionate about this. So it's reinstating that, which I think is a really good empowering thing for the committee. I just want to acknowledge what Councillor Stephanie Davies talked about, Career Up. There is an allocation for the netball club. As I said before, things have changed to previous years, but there is a commitment of a contribution to that project. Also, in response to the storms, it's great to see there's an allocation. I'm constantly getting complaints regarding still tree debris on our roadside. So Councillor Springfield led that advocacy for a allocation of 500,000 to really uplift that response. Also, drainage has been a significant issue over the last, this term of council. So I'm really pleased that there's additional investment in improving drainage on our unsealed road network over and above our normal amounts. I'm really pleased that the Upper Beaconsfield Rec Reserve. I've been talking about this for a long time, and it's great to see, with the assistance of the state government, hopefully the confirmation of the federal government allocation. We're still waiting on that confirmation, but we will see a new pavilion for the Upper Beaconsfield community, and continued investment in that space is in this budget. So other is traffic improvements, rec reserve lighting, black spot intersection upgrades, also Princess Highway intersection upgrades is continuing. So I'm pleased that a number of projects is proceeding, but I do note that it has been a very tough budget process. I hope that some of those projects that have been delayed will reappear in the years to come through those budget processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Carol Ryan.
Through you, Mayor, and to my fellow councillors. In nearly 8 years, this has probably been the toughest budget that I've been involved in, and we have negotiated. We negotiate. There's 9 councillors advocating for things that they're passionate about and their community within those wards, their needs. And we have open discussion and we debate quite intensely about where priorities are. So it's not always easy. It may look easy from the outside, but it's quite intense. And I thank the staff for all the hard work and the information that when we requested or we want follow-ups, they are on board. They come back fairly quickly and give us the information. So I commend the staff. I'm really proud to say working with them as a team is really fantastic. Part of the budget is our job, and that's what we signed up for. And it's all in reference to what is the best thing for our community within Cardinia Shire. And some of the things I wrote down is that equality. Equality is very important to me, and the budget needs to be about equality all over and recognising things that are top priority. And unfortunately, yes, some things are pushed back. And as Councillor Owen said, we hope they reappear because there's a few good projects that have had to be pushed back for budget reasons. And we talk about future generations, and but we seem to forget about the generation that's already here, and we need to acknowledge that, and that's where equality comes in. So future generations are going to be the ones that come into council and are going to debate in the future for the budget with future councillors coming on board. So I support this budget, but as I said, it's been the hardest for me personally, and some of the projects, you know, to see that you advocate very strongly for that have had to take a back seat, but that's being fair to all councillors and all people in the community. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carol Ryan. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak? I see Councillor Kay Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to the Kuirup Netball Club, the court resurfacing of this club is of an urgent nature. So in 2021, the Netball Victoria said that the courts were of poor quality, and it was also identified in the council's audit, and the council decided that the courts were an absolute priority project within Cardinia Shire Council budget. That was in the year 21-22. 23-24, the club received an email from council that court development was confirmed and documented in the 23-24 budget, with works to commence in the 24-25 year. Funding was provided and the design elements were completed, and there was it was declared a shovel-ready project. Then in a meeting held on the 17th of May 2024, at the end of the meeting, during the meeting, colour schemes were selected, court orientations were selected, what was staying and what was going was chosen, and at the end of the meeting, council officers said to the group, well, it's not happening now because there's no money. So you can imagine exactly how everybody felt. And when you think about Kuirup Netball, it's a place where people from the community meet, they socialise and they play netball. It's a place to promote physical activity, teamwork and foster a sense of belonging. If the club can't provide a safe and playable venue for the results for the community is very poor and has a negative outcomes, I beg your pardon, on the mental health and physical health of the community. And indeed, all of this is most contradictory to the council's livable plan, which means it's supposed to support outcomes for mental health and wellbeing via access for services for active living, and furthermore contradicts the state government's fair access policy roadmap, which should provide access and use for community sports infrastructure. The club are deeply concerned that if the courts aren't redeveloped, they will become unusable, leaving the club in a difficult situation where they can no longer play a safe and playable community sporting venue. And it's the home of 12 sides playing on both Saturday competition netball and development midweek netball. There's been a lot of support from local MPs. Jason Wood has offered a letter of support. Jordan Cronali, MP for Bass, she wrote in her letter that Netball Victoria referenced condition and compliance report with a poor rating, and ensuing degradation of the court is now bordering on unplayable and a real risk to player and umpires. They are below standard.
Sorry, Councillor Cameron, you're over time. You're going to need a...
Well, with this in mind, I will not be supporting this budget.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do have to stick to time, as we know, 3 minutes. And if you need additional time, we'll get a mover in a seconder. We do have to be pretty prompt. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this budget item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in short, for the first 9 years on council, I actually voted against every budget. They're above the CPI, which I promised people I would try and encourage and use my vote to make rate increases more affordable. With rate capping, it fortunately came into effect on the year that I became mayor. So I was very proud to see, and I was probably the best advocate to talk about it because I'd sort of embraced it for such a long time. In that year, we in fact had a record infrastructure spend on a rate capping year, which is quite amazing considering the constraints of rate capping. This year, the increase will be 2.75, which is really, really good because that's less than what people's increase in wages will be. So therefore, they're not going to be put under more pressure. For the next 6 years, I voted for the budget every single year. This year, I must say, I've been really torn with the Cooey-Rupp Netball Club. I've seen us council spend tens of millions of dollars on other sporting facilities. And in this case, isn't about a pavilion. It's not about a social space. It's not about any of those things. It's about the surface people play on. And that's the very most important thing. I'm really proud in Cardinia Shire the surfaces our footballers, our cricketers, everybody play on is a really safe and great surface. It's really sad that this got put back. I struggle with safety becoming a concern for people playing there. I mean, down in that area there isn't a whole lot of options, and the netball playing from the female, particularly the younger people, is really, really important to have a place to go and play. I don't know what they'd do if they can't play on those courts anymore, and to have it put back, I felt really sad. I just want to compliment our council staff who have really laboured under trying to listen to all of our concerns of all the 9 councillors, and they've done an amazing job. Unfortunately, with this deletion and putting back on the surface of this court, which could be safety concerned, I really, really struggle to vote for the budget. I mean, the rest of it looks great, but this one thing here is really, really stuck in my throat. And I just can't see playing surfaces become unsafe, particularly where there's 12 teams playing there. Anyway, I'm really sad to say that I won't support the budget because of this one item. Anyway, I thank the council staff for all the hard work they've done, but I think the rate cap increase is really, really good for the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Springfield to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. And I thank you. Appreciate my fellow councillors' thoughts on this. Look, and I might just take a moment to mention, what my thoughts on the Cooey-Rupp, the netball facilities, and I think I acknowledge that it needs work. It does need work, and so in that, I welcome the fact that we've brought forward $300,000 to be available to the club as a grant allocation to help fund it, because I have to note this club is an appointed DECA-appointed committee, right? Council has no authority over the club. It is on state government land, so I welcome Jordan Cronali, the MP up there, for advocating for it, because in order for this to proceed, and council's willing to put $300,000 for this in this financial year to do it, so should the owner of the land put in some money to do this club. I'd like to note a couple of years ago, we did do upgrades to this, recognising they needed upgrades. The netball club rooms cost approximately $1.3 million, of which $400,000 was funded through the state. And council pull up the rest. So perhaps next time they can do the 2/3 and we could do the 1/3 of the funding, and we can see this delivered if we work together with the state to deliver projects on state facilities, which is very important. But in that, from I think the budget as a whole, it is. There is tough decisions that have to be made, and I think this is a responsible budget. I'd like to thank the officers for bringing forward from the Emergency Management Fund $500,000 to help with the cleanup across the hills areas from the storm affected areas, because most importantly, we're going to come into a fire season very soon. I hope it's not this year, but very soon it's going to be an exacerbated fire season, because we've had a good run for many years now. It's going to hit us again soon. So every work that we can do to clean up the debris that's in the area that will be left unattended otherwise, I think is going to really help in the safety for our communities moving forward. But look, I'll leave it there, ma'am, and thank you for the councillors for their thoughts and opinions. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Springfield. I think it is appropriate that I do speak to the budget. Whilst I didn't want to introduce the item, I wanted my fellow councillors to do that. I think it is appropriate that I speak to it, and I do hope in a moment that we, as a majority, resolve to adopt the 24-25 council budget, which of course is the final annual budget for this council's current term. I do appreciate the comments of all of my colleagues, even those who won't be supporting it. Also want to thank our CEO and officers for their hard work, because obviously, as many councillors have said, there are many iterations and many different versions of this before it comes to the final adoption night. Obviously, as representatives of our community, the budget should be guided by principles that relate to achieving value for money, because of course we know this is not our money, this is the public's money. So making sure that we make that stretch as far as it can go should always be a guiding principle on this budget. Also, capacity to pay. We've seen some councils experience significant financial hardships, and in fact some councils go broke, and it can't be the financial legacy of this council to do that. So the capacity to pay, whilst it is always difficult, we need to make sure that we continue to prioritise that. Also, service accessibility. I mean, we talk about roads, rates and rubbish as the basics, but we saw, with grass cutting and things like that, that our community do have a level of expectations, as they should. So we've made sure that our service accessibility and our standards are right there as well. Of course, the overarching objective, as always, is to keep rates and charges as affordable as possible and within the rate cap, whilst continuing to deliver those valued services. There were several key considerations for council this year, and we have, you spoke about it before, Councillor Springfield, remained as determined as ever to keep that balance right. I mean, we know that the majority of our ratepayers and rate base comes from those growth areas, but it doesn't mean that our communities in the hills or in the railway towns or down south should be disproportionately affected by that. We need to make sure that we're creating an equitable Cardinia Shire where everyone can win. Managing the unpredictable nature, impacts and costs associated with relief and recovery efforts from natural disasters, you mentioned as well, is a rising challenge. Obviously, our continued rapid population growth means that there is an increasing demand for and on council's assets and services, which people probably don't see, but as our growth areas expand, more grass cutting, more roads to maintain, etc. So it does become increasingly difficult. We have worked hard to develop a budget that meets the needs of our community while working within the constraints of limited revenue sources and the rate cap. So this is one of those budgets where I do think that whilst not everyone will be completely satisfied, and we've heard that tonight, I do hope that Councillor Cameron and Councillor Ross can see that councillors and council staff have tried to say, whilst we can't fund this project in full, whilst we can't do everything we'd like to do in full, we have attributed some money towards particular line items, and we continue to give some reference and deference to our community assets that are on Crown land. I think I'll leave it there and we'll go to a vote, but I do hope my fellow councillors support this year's budget, the final budget of this term. Thank you, councillors. All right, let's put it to a vote. Item 6.4.1, the 24-25 budget up for adoption. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on, item 6.5.1, community engagement update. The officer recommendation is that council notes the community engagement activities being undertaken in June, July 2024. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the council officer recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Owen. Councillor Davies to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a regular activity report that is presented to Council for endorsement and noting. We have a list of projects that have been put to formal consultation, including naming of Thulis Integrated Child and Family Centre, the Upper Beaconsfield Master Plan, which I will not speak to, our draft fair access policy, our playground renewal in Greenland Court in Garfield, a lot of the consultation is done in pop-ups in the community, also targeted engagement, including sporting clubs and committees, and also online. So I do recommend all councillors note the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll just go to your seconder, Councillor Owen, to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Davies. So as stated, there are 4 engagement opportunities. I'll speak on 2. The Upper Beaconsfield Master Plan. Obtained feedback to inform the strategic 10-year master plan to support future sport, leisure and environmental needs of the community. Upper Beak is Deca land, but I believe, in my opinion, that council should contribute to such a facility, particularly if there is limited council-owned land in that town. So it is a 10-year master plan. We have commenced that already. That started on the 11th of June until the 2nd of July. Council has already engaged with the user groups, and that includes obviously the sporting elements, cricket, football, also the Scouts, the abutting school, Upper Beak Primary School, and also the 2 equestrian clubs that accommodate on this reserve. So next week there is a drop-in session which I'll be attending, and I hope the community will get to as well. So I encourage residents to be part of that. And the final one I want to speak to is the draft fair access policy. Council is requesting feedback on the draft policy to identify ways to remove barriers to increase participation in active recreation across the Shire. So the engagement will occur, has commenced on the 13th of June until the 10th of July, engagement with the broader community. So I look forward to receiving obviously all those submissions and council moving on with those 4 areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Davies, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I confirm that I seek Council's endorsement noting the report.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll now put the officer recommendation to item 6.5.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving to item 6.5.2, major projects report June. The officer recommendation is that council note the report for the month of June 2024. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Colin Ross. Councillor Davies to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross. This is certainly a wonderful report to read regularly as a council and a councillor, and I'd like to quickly just draw council's attention to 2 projects. Firstly, Officer District Park. We have called for community feedback on its naming. We're looking at options to strengthen our Indigenous connections. Super exciting. There's been complicated slope issues. It's a huge park, and there's been extensive excavation work. The bulk of the civil works is now complete, so there is now a usable level open space areas. The concrete footpath and running trail network is nearly complete. The playground equipment installation is continuing. Design work is underway regarding the public toilets or restrooms. Due to the slope, the future needs and the available budget, there is options that are being considered. The entire project is also undergoing a second all abilities accessibility audit to ensure that the small changes that do result during construction, that when you do have differences to design, that the impacts of the slight are worked through. And the project's currently still on track for completion late 2024. I'm so excited about it. The good times we're all going to enjoy for many years to come. I can't wait to get my kids there, and I'm so grateful to the staff who, they're like an Energizer bunny. Like, nothing has stopped them, and I'm so excited about Officer District Park. Secondly, Tivendale Road on the Princes Highway with the works there, the timeframe has been pushed out to about August or September. Council officers have changed their approach in the construction. We are listening. We know how frustrating it is for traders who aren't getting the patronage to their shops, but also the delayed troubling public. So in order to protect that as much possible road construction work has been changed across to be night work. So getting it done this way, we're trying to reduce the impacts during the day. And I do think it's worth noting that we have council officers that are proactively listening and collaborating with our community. So I will hand that over to the rest of the council to withdraw any items of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to your seconder, Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Davies, for withdrawing this item. I must say, the Officer District Park, even though it's not in my ward, has been a really long time coming, and it's been something that bounced between that and the IYU athletics track. From time to time, one moved ahead of the other one, depending upon funding. This is a really, really good project. Many parents have got children that just need to get out and run around, and it's got like off-leash dog areas. It's got different stations, exercise stations, and in the north, where it's a little bit hillier, we don't have a whole lot of these open space areas. So this area will be really, really good. I can't wait to see what stage one looks like. It looks like it's forming really well, and I look forward to seeing people actually use that space, which I'm absolutely certain they will. I know Councillor Davies with young children realises more than anybody how you just need to get kids outside the house from time to time and take them somewhere where they can just go out there and run around. And so this is a really, really good addition to Cardinia Shire, and I look forward to seeing what it turns out like. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick note to see, works are progressing on the Sealing the Hills project on a number of roads, which is, it's been a disruption for residents, and it's difficult because it takes a long time to do a dirt road into a sealed road, and that has been displaced a lot of people for access and things. So I do appreciate the patience coming through. Access for some residents, has been completely disrupted, and concerns raised because of how their access when they have steep road gradients and such. Driveway gradients coming to it. So look, I have been assured that the officers are continuing to work with any affected residents to make sure good outcomes come. But because we're talking budget time, I'd just like to mention, as per the report, that the advocacy campaign calling on the Australian government to reconsider the decision to discontinue the project is ongoing, and that's a really important piece of work. We had secured $41 million worth of funding, but originally this project, when it was announced in the 2019 federal budget, was for $150 million across our shire. And it would be really great to see this project reinstated in some form in the future. We've done so much preliminary work on planning reports, on design for many roads that hadn't made it to the tender stage. That work's sitting on the shelf ready to go. It would be great to see funding delivered, because it is the bugbear, and it will continue to be for residents in the regions, in the hilly sort of green wedge regions, to have unsealed roads sealed and drainage improved. And the more that we can get that done in the future, the better for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to advise that councillors have received feedback from residents about this report, and I'm pleased that in the new financial year, this major project report will be improved. More information, more transparency around timelines, funding, budget, etc. And I think that's what our community wants. And this is something that councillors, I always refer to this report when someone's wanting an update. What's happening with this project? I refer to this report. So I look forward to those improvements happening next financial year. I just wanted to acknowledge what Councillor Springfield said about Sealing the Hills, and obviously, I look forward to that continued advocacy. A number of roads are almost shovel ready. Obviously, the finalisation of permits, but designs were very close to complete, and they've been put on hold until hopefully one day we get this additional funding or reinstatement of that funding. I just obviously with the budget we've just passed, the council budget, I'm really pleased that Huxtable Road, this was debated over that budget discussions, that Huxtable Road is in the budget, in the 24-25 budget for construction, and the following year Bessie Creek Road is in the budget, and in this just adopted budget there's money for the design of Bessie Creek and the following year construction. So those roads have been continue to be asked, in this forum at council meetings regarding that. So I'm really pleased that money is in the council budget. I just want to acknowledge our bridge renewal program. There's been significant works happening in Beaconsfield in the estate just off Beaconsfield Emerald Road. That estate's over 25 years old, those wetlands, and to see the renewal of bridge works and boardwalks is been really good. And council engineers and workers are mainly doing most of that work. There is some fabrication works being done in a factory, but most of those works are being done by our workers on the bridge team. And it's been great to see that renewal of those assets in those wetlands areas of Beaconsfield. I look forward to that being completed in the coming months. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to speak about the Cannibal Creek Reserve community building at Garfield North. There's a few hiccups with the permit going through, so it's I want to reassure the residents up there, the community up there at the Pony Club there, that it is on its way. It's just a matter of there's a few hiccups we've got to get through. But I do note what Councillor Owen has mentioned, that this report unfortunately is not updated to what it should be probably today. And if you read the report on the different particular items of where they are and where we know they are, where we've seen them actually live, that they're well ahead of what the major projects report actually has. I use it myself, just like Councillor Owen, as a progress report from our staff. But sometimes it's a few months behind, so it gets a little bit difficult to think when you see it, and how it's reported is two different things. So I'm looking forward to the as Councillor Owen has mentioned as well, seeing it upgraded and maybe make it a bit more up to date in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors like to contribute to this item? I see Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that the Cooler Bowls Club is going ahead gangbusters. We were there doing the sod turn, and by the end of the week had a photograph of a floor down and walls up. So the bowling club are extremely excited about this, and I look forward to the next instalment of photographs. So also Coralline Football Club Pavilion, the tender has been allocated for that, so hopefully that will be underway before too much longer. The only other thing is the Mount Lyell Road at Heath Hill. The ceiling of that road has once again been put back to September due to the contractor withdrawing his desire to go ahead with the contract, and so the tender, new tender closed on the 11th of June and will be presented to Council in July for the works to start in September. So that's something nice that's happening in Western Port Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll now go to Councillor Davies to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I move that we endorse the report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now put item 6.5.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Councillors, that concludes discussion of the agenda items listed. Obviously, we still do have a little bit more work to do. Given the time, it might be appropriate to just take a short adjournment to allow everyone to visit the toilet and stretch their legs. Can I have a mover to adjourn the meeting for 7 minutes? We'll come back at 8:55 p.m. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Ryan. Is there a seconder? Councillor Moore. All those in favour? Thank you. All right, we'll reconvene at 8:55 p.m. Thank you. Thanks, gallery. All right, thank you, everyone. I'll now reconvene the meeting at 5 to 9. We'll move on to, thanks, everyone. Thank you. I could ask the gallery to, thank you. We'll now reconvene the meeting. We'll move into councillors' reports. Councillors, are there any matters to report? I see Councillor Davies first.
Thank you, Mayor. Council had some big news, some very sad news last week. Our General Manager of Livable Communities, Lily Rosick, is finishing up with us next Friday. I'd like to acknowledge the incredible contribution she made to the Shire. During only 2.5 years, she's led 3 very important major departments: the Planning and Design Department, Community and Family Services, and Active and Creative Communities. This council has Lily to thank for the leadership on Cardinia's first community infrastructure plan and active Cardinia strategy, the open space strategy, the kindergarten infrastructure service plan, livability plan 2017 to 27, and the development of the Officers Southeast Precinct structure plan. Lily says herself, whenever children, trees and pets are involved, it's never easy, and that is very, very true. Lily has helped me personally so much navigating those grey areas of community feedback and how can we respond. And I know that this assistance, it's been available to all of us and made us better councillors. And it's also incredible as a councillor from our little perch offside to watch the change in the organisation and her departments. Lily is now leaving us with departments and staff and work plans that are high quality and thriving. Lily's been extremely highly respected by her staff. Some of her staff are I guess as the councillor, my absolute favourite council officers too. And so Lily, thank you. You're truly one of the best. I'm wondering which lucky council may have poached her. And true story, I had Lily's help one-to-one in Canberra when we went with the National Growth Area Alliance, and Lily was quite the wing woman. We made a great team in advocacy. I had the business cases printed and in hand, and Lily had her laptop out. Lily would work out which politicians were ministers, and then I had to do my thing, which was to corner them and sell. Hello, let me tell you all about Cardinia Shire and where we need federal investment. There was one instance when Lily thought we found a minister, and it turned out that wasn't a minister. Hopefully that man just thought I was a random crazy person. But we didn't come back from our trip to Canberra like our mayor, who has a photo with the Prime Minister, but due to Lily, the federal ministers all know about Cardinia Life, our mighty Cardinia Piranha Squad, and how they're packed in like sardines in a pool that's far too small for our growing community. So I have great respect and gratitude for Lily. I'd like to sincerely thank her, send my very best wishes to her, and Lily, thank you. And secondly, just this week, council's reached out to the Multicultural Advisory Committee, which I chair, and the Safer Communities Partnership and wider community. This is more of Lily's work because council is preparing a new policy and action plan that brings together a range of our separate plans related to fairness, accessibility, and ensuring the best outcomes and opportunities for different groups in our community. At the moment, we're calling this Cardinia the Fair to All policy. Councillor Owen actually spoke to this briefly, as it was also noted in our community engagement report. It is so very, very important that we, as a council, proactively engage and get community direction on their expectations and their needs. I think all of us, councillors and staff alike, want to create a robust, quality policy regarding social justice and equity. And so in raising this, I want to invite the wider community to please consider attending the in-person and online community engagement sessions or providing feedback in line, because we need to hear from a broad range of our community networks. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillors, are there any other matters to report? I see Councillor Ryan. Just please be conscious of time, councillors. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, something exciting in Pakenham East, the station's opened. So they're now officially operating, but if you stand under a certain part of the Pakenham station, you may get wet on very, very wet days. So there are sections there that they're still trying to define where some of the water runs down. So be aware of that if you're going to use the transport. It just means that we'll have better bus connections and taxi service as well, which will be fantastic. So I had a meeting with the Southeastern Mental Health Board, and we meet 4 times a year, and it's in reference to mental health services within the region of Cardinia Shire and outer. And we're advocating strongly for services down this way. And we know it's a big project, but we're on board for the long haul. Volunteers dinner, that was fantastic. There was a great number of people. I actually got round to every table to say hello. It might have been a quick hello, but it was acknowledging people there, and I really thought that was really a great achievement even to do that. I went to an equestrian psychologist competition, and it's in reference to all the psychologists that work in the aquarium business, that we all tested our horses, who had the best horses, who acknowledged the depression states, the anxiety states, and any other state that came in. And we were the guinea pigs as psychologists. So it was quite interesting to see everybody else's horses. They were more interested in the other horses than they were in us. So we did get a lot out of that. It was a great meeting. And what I didn't mention in the budget that I feel that is important that I mention it now is there has been continual conversations about the Pakenham outdoor pool, and it is in the budget, and there is funding that is going to be there on a continual basis because we've advocated very strongly for that. And so I just hope that residents will see that in the budget, because that was an important advocacy that I was putting out there within our community. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to quickly mention one thing, and that was the recent passing back at the 28th of May of local legend, Betty Marsden. Now, a lot of people here may not know Betty Marsden very well, but she was, she lived just over the border in the Yarra Ranges Shire, but she was a very strong environmental advocate for many years, from the 70s onwards, that I crossed paths with many times, and was a councillor for the Shire of Sherbrooke back when the Shire of Sherbrooke was the Hills region. So it was through her advocacy before that secured Birdsland Reserve, if anyone's been down there in Belgrave South. That wouldn't have, without her work back in the 70s and 80s, that wouldn't have become a public reserve, bought and owned by council since then. Her advocacy down there that helped the development of Emerald Lake Park when that was a Shire of Sherbrooke asset back in the day. But look, I only found out reading the local paper the other week about Betty Marsden, and look, I crossed paths with her many times. She was a real stalwart, of supporting the environment across the hills, volunteering for many groups. She lived to a very long, ripe age, and yeah, she'll be sorely missed in the community. So I think it's worth mentioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. We say Vale, Betty. Councillors, are there any other matters to report? I see Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to report I'm a member of the Mount Shamrock Environmental Review Committee for the Wholesome Pakenham Quarry in Mount Shamrock. Back in February, they announced to the community and the ERC that they'll be investigating drilling works to investigate whether it was worthy, in their opinion, to extend their operations within the approved work authority boundary in the northeast corner. So back in February, they commenced drilling, and at our recent community tour and ERC meeting, they said that they will commence the application process to extend their operations in that northeast corner. So I just want to advise council that has a long history, particularly in the Tumut Valley. And I know the ERC members, some of the community members are concerned about that announcement, but obviously Wholesome will work with the committee, obviously council and the general community regarding its will to extend the operations. So I'll update council as that progresses. Congratulations, and I'm sure you'll note it, Mayor, the Stan Henwood Award winner, Doc Griffin. I also want to acknowledge the other nominees. It was a great night, the Mayor's reception. I'm sure you'll talk about that. I had the opportunity, and I know Councillor Springfield knows about this, but I had a meeting with the Nangana New Futures project, which is the Nangana Land Care Network. But they've got some aspirations for the environment in the northern part of our Shire, and I hope they will be able to brief all councillors in the coming months regarding their hopes and aspirations. And finally, last week, the upper house member for South East Metro, Michael Galea, held a reference group, Beaconsfield residence group for the Beaconsfield LXR project, level crossing removal in Beaconsfield. So this is something that normally doesn't happen. LXRP runs their consultation on their projects, but the local MP has gone about himself to arrange this because there was concerns from residents. So I attended that, and that's the intention of the MP to run these residents reference groups in the coming months as well as the project continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very quick. I was with yourself at the launch of the Cardinia Leadership Program, which is a fantastic thing to have in Cardinia Shire. We have had a couple of councillors on board here from the Leadership Program, and so it is well worthy to improve for people of the community to come along to this program. It's really great to see, and I think we really do it well here in Cardinia, the Leadership Program. So keep that in mind. Of course, the volunteers night, the reception, your volunteers night, and the Stan Hemwood Awards night was fantastic. I've done 3 Debian balls recently, which has been really great to do. A lot of fun. And the week after was we had a primary school come to council, Bridgewood Primary School, our neighbouring primary school here, came and filled the gallery. Very interesting questions that the 6th grade students will ask, and they did. I thought the Mayor did very, very well there on the day to explain local government and how local government works. So it was great to share the day with you on that day. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things to highlight in the ward that I'm the councillor of. IYU is now open to the public 24/7 with a gate, drinking fountain, the whole lot of it. It's great that I'm down there regularly, and it's great to see other people using it who normally wouldn't go and use these sort of areas. So that's really great to see. I understand schools are coming down, are going to be using it more regularly in future as we build a little bit more infrastructure for them. The Toomer Creek walkway, which goes all the way from Princess Highway down to Henry Road, which is extremely well used. Every Saturday morning at about 8 o'clock, you've got up to about 200 people use it every week. I know myself, I know the Mayor, go on the start at 8 o'clock in the morning most weeks. I know Councillor Owen and his son also go down there and use it regularly as well with a whole lot of other people. And I must say, looking at our open space maintenance, it's really improved. We changed in the past 6 months to another model which actually has zones rather than one company gets the whole lot of it. And different people tendered for all the different zones. And with this competition and the care for the different companies who won the tenders, you can actually see a real benefit coming because they take a whole lot of ownership of them. They're very proud of the opportunity they get to look after those areas. And we've seen a marked improvement in this area. I look forward to seeing that continue. And the only other issue I had was I drove around the other day to have a look at some residents raised the issue that the removal of the heritage lights, but that'll come up a little bit more later. I drove around and had a look at all those anyway. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, are there any other matters to report? I see none. We'll move on. Agenda item number 9. Councillors, are there any petitions to be tabled at tonight's meeting? I see none. We are up to item number 10 now, which is notices of motion. But before we go into notices of motion, given most of the community questions pertain to the notices of motion, I might bring these forward now as they are relevant. So I'll invite Debbie Tyson up. I think we have 5 community questions. So just prior to Deb answering them, as we do as is standard, I'll just make sure, even though I know, we'll make sure that the people who are sending those questions are here. So can I ask if Mr. Bill Ronald is here? Thank you. I'll refer your question to Debbie Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your question, Mr. Ronald, which is income raised by Cardinia Shire Council from the decorative light pole fee is to be maintained in a reserve fund and used to offset future costs of the replacement decorative street light poles. In dollar terms, what was the total contribution from Parkley Developments from the entire Heritage Springs residential estate? When exactly did Cardinia Shire Council change the description guidelines of the decorative light pole fund to include and retrofitting energy efficiency lamps on existing light poles? And the $256,000 withdrawn from the reserve account in 2022 and transferred to the accumulated surplus was used for what specific purpose? In response, which will also be provided in writing, the Heritage Springs subdivision was developed more than 14 years ago and with approximately 28 stages, each requiring a non-standard lighting agreement and associated fee. Since receiving the question today, we have not had the time to identify the full contribution made by the developer of this subdivision. It is noted that a preliminary review has found for stages 24, that was $7,800. Stages 28, this payment was $9,250. However, we will take this question on notice and provide the relevant details in writing. In 2015, Council introduced a $3,000 per decorative pole fee. At this time, through an internal document, it was identified that income raised from the $3,000 pole fee be maintained in a reserve fund and used to offset future costs of replacement decorative lights and retrofitting energy efficient lamps on existing poles. In 2021 to 22, the identified $256,000 was used for contractor costs relating to the replacement of decorative lights and lanterns and other non-standard lighting, and also the audit of the Mercury lighting program. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Our next question is from Gillian Ronald. Is Gillian in the gallery? And I note that she is. I refer your question to Debbie Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Rowland. Your question is, the Mercury Vapour Street Lighting Replacement Tender, tender's net reference number 1282721, closing date Tuesday 31st of the 5th 2022 at 2 p.m, tender details 22/015. When, being the date, was the drafting of the document first commenced? How long was the tender advertised and open for? Exactly how many tenders were received by the Cardinia Shire Council? And exactly how did the tender document specify how the Heritage Springs or other estates' decorative street lights that required removal from their poles would be disposed of? In response to your question, which will also be provided in writing, documentation for tender contract 22/015 commenced in April 2022. The tender was open from 7 May to 31st May 2022. One tender was received, noting there are a limited number of AusNet approved contractors who can tender these works. The current installer who is working in Heritage Springs has been engaged through a separate process via MAV panel contract SL3911/2022. In relation to recycling requirements as per the tender contract, lamps must be processed to separate the glass, aluminium, phosphorus powder and argon gas. Glass and aluminium must be recycled. Mercury must be distilled and reused. The plastic visor bowls, the plastic backing and luminaire body must all be recycled. The PE cells need to dispose of or recycled in line with EPA regulations. Copper and steel components must be recycled. Control gear, balustrades, iron components must be recycled. Iron components, and steel screws must be recycled. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Tyson. Our next question is from Rebecca Piskowski. Is Rebecca here? Sorry if I got the pronunciation wrong. I refer your question to Deb Tyson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, which reads, the new lights have been chosen strongly resembling jail watchtowers and have altered the ambience of our beautiful estate, especially noticeable in our autumn when we are paying particular attention to the changing colours of the leaves. In an email received by myself from Councillor Jack Wazik, it was stated that to gain approval from AusNet Services for a light to be used on their network, there is a detailed and costly application process that needs to be followed, which includes detailed testing and review. Was the actual cost of the application process outlined? And if so, was this information available? And how does this cost compare to the current process of full removal of the top of the posts that have already been undertaken? Was this information provided to the community in the previous community consultation that only some residents received? In response, which will also be provided in writing, only one manufacturer has achieved approval for these types of lights. The approval process for installing a product on the AusNet network is a matter handled by the product supplier or manufacturer, and it's not within the council's remit. Consequently, the aspects were not communicated to residents as council is not involved in the application process for such approvals. Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, is Alison Haddock in the gallery? Thank you, Alison. I refer your question to Deb Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, which reads, at the Ordinary Council meeting on the 11th of April 2022, item 6.4.1 regarding Mercury Vapour Street Lighting Replacement Project, the consultation communication stated, discussions have taken place with communication and engagement officers and a communication plan is being developed. This will ensure the community is kept informed regarding the project, especially those residents that live in areas where lights will be upgraded. Councillor Owen spoke at length, emphasising the importance of Council's community consultation on this project. What were the steps in the communication plan, if any, and why was no in-person consultation conducted with the community, specifically with local groups such as the Heritage Springs residential groups regarding the removal of the decorative heritage lights? In response, which will be sent through in writing, due to the absence of alternative LED products compatible with the AusNet network, the Sylvania at Kensington was the sole option for the light upgrade. Under Council's community engagement policy, inform is a form of engagement which is used when there is no genuine opportunity for the community to influence the outcome. Consequently, the strategy adopted involved informing the community. The communication strategy encompassed a range of activities including media announcements, features in council newsletter, social media updates, and direct mail notification to residents in the vicinity of the lighting upgrades prior to the initiation of the project. This includes 1,611 residents in Stage 1 and 1,792 residents in Stage 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Our last question that we've received is from Hank. Is Hank in the gallery? And I see that he is. Thank you. I refer your question to Debbie Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Hank. Your question reads, the report to Council date 11/4 2022, Mercury Vapour Street Lighting Replacement Project. Paragraph headed, Financial and Resource Implications. Identified internal and external funding sources have been identified to fund the estimated 2.25 million project. What were the internal funding sources identified, and was one of the internal funding sources identified the Cardinia Shire Decorative Light Poles Reserve Fund? In response to your question that will be provided in writing, external funding sources identified include AusNet Services funding, the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program from the Federal Government, and Victoria Energy Efficiency Certificates. Internal funding identified included capital works allocation and a contribution from the Decorative Light Poles Reserve Fund. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, community, for your questions. I note there's no urgent business and no councillor questions. But I will, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'll go back to notices of motion, which is where we were at in the agenda. but I did think it was relevant to allow those questions. All right, we'll get on with notices of motion. We'll start with 1095, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Davies. Councillor Davies, can you present your notice of motion, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Notice of motion 1095 that council officers will prepare and table a report for council at the September 2024 council meeting regarding the Vaughan Court Christmas lights display. This motion is asking for a report from staff. Vaughan Court is a much loved and now huge community attraction, and I'm calling for a report to ensure council has oversight of the risk management practices that the council officers, in collaboration with the Victoria Police, provide to protect the safety of our community as they and we, as part of the community, enjoy this event.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, for presenting that. Do I have a seconder for that notice of motion? I see Councillor Colin Ross. Councillor Davies to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross. The report will ensure that the council has all the information available to it to ensure that the council has confidence that the organisation is managing the associated risks. I've heard concerns about waste and rubbish, about parking over driveways, about roads being blocked, about antisocial behaviour, about an ambulance being unable to get through. I've heard about tripping hazards. I've heard about alcohol-fuelled behaviour in public and cigarettes and tobacco smoke. I also visit these lights every year, and I have for the past 10 Christmases with my growing children, and I love it. We go early, we beat the crowds, and I don't live in this estate, so I have not witnessed anything of concern, but local residents have shared this feedback with me, not just one or two residents, lots of them. And I do feel for them. I know Council's compliance team and Victoria Police do have numerous discussions about the Vaughan Court Christmas display and the crowds. They do it prior to and during December every year. And as the elected councillors, we all need to be comprehensively informed, but unfortunately, I don't feel that we are all comprehensively informed. I also don't think that we should ignore this. And whilst it's in the Henty ward, residents from all our wards go to these lights, and all councillors do have skin in the game. We all do care. So Councillor Ryan is the ward councillor. I did offer to move this motion, either for her to move it instead of me or with me, but she has declined, and I do respect that. I'll confirm that this motion, I'm just asking for a report because I care about Christmas and I care about keeping people safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go to your seconder now, Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, in supporting this notice of motion, I think any family who basically have got children in the Pakenham area, if you haven't been down and attended this, I reckon there'd have to be at least 95% of families would have taken children down to attend this event. This is an amazing Christmas event put on by private people in a court that goes in a bit of a U-shape around. I know with my family on Christmas Eve over many, many years, we've been down and attended, even with grandchildren being down and attended this event. It really, really is well done. And I can see where Councillor Davies is coming from in respect to this. It's got to the point where it's so big and with the safety things and the restrictions that are put on things, as a report coming back, it will sort of address the issue about what goes on there. It'll talk about, you know, the safety side of things, and in any areas council might be able to assist in opportunities to see what we can do to make sure it's safe and for all residents, because it is a hugely attended event. It is hugely popular, and I would hate to see that they run into some problems that they can't get over, and council can't be there to support them in some way in wherever we can. Anyway, I support this. I hope my fellow councillors will support this. And if they haven't been down to Vaughan Court because you don't live in Pakenham, I'd suggest once just go down there at Christmas time and have a look. You'll be really surprised. It's really an amazing event put on by local residents. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, for your comments. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this? I see Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Davies, for bringing this up. And yes, you did give me the opportunity. The reason that I decided to step down from it was speaking to the officers that council has no enforcement authority to restrict residents from displaying lights and decorations on their private property. Council does not undertake a consultation process This is beyond council's role. That was the reason I stepped back. Look, everyone has their opinion, and as Councillor Davis, she wanted to present this, and that's fair enough. I go to this on a continual basis, and I have two friends that actually live in that court that do display lights. So it's well run as far as the occupants are. They look after their lights, they look after their property. The police continually are there on a visual basis. They love going there, the police, because they interact with the kids, they interact with people walking around. I've not seen anything other than food vans that are now coming in and wanting to run businesses. That is the problem that I see, because a lot of them haven't got permits to be there. And it's also, they are on people's nature strips causing problems, which is causing parking problems as well. That's the only thing that I have seen in the time that I have been there. They have a horse and carriage that goes up and down, but the horse and carriage, I know the owner, and I did speak to them in reference to maybe having some better lights, because if children run in front of the horses will get spooked and they could move a different way and someone could get knocked over. So that's so they've decided that they will go further down and use the horse and carriage for picking up people and taking them for rides. But it is absolutely fantastic, and it has been there for a long time. I've come here in 1979 and those lights were displayed back then. So it's been an ongoing thing. It's not a new thing, and I wish that a lot more people in the community would do it, because it engages people, it engages conversations, it's great for mental health. And talking to some of the residents that do have mental health issues at times, they thrive on it. They love it because they feel like they're part of the organisation that is there with the lights, and they just feel that, you know, they can participate and be who they are and celebrate Christmas with everybody else. And I think that's wonderful. And same with our homeless people. They also go to this event, and they go pretty much nearly every night, so which is fantastic. So so I've relayed the reason why that I stepped back. So I won't be supporting a report. I find that that's just a waste of resources time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ryan. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this notice of motion? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Davies to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I'm not calling for the council to restrict what any household displays in their windows or on their front lawn at Christmas time, and I'm not calling for a council to do anything it doesn't need to do. But I have heard from several residents that they are concerned that the risks aren't being managed, and that is our responsibility to manage risk. To me, it's asking for a report is not a waste. So I am seeking support as in making this notice of motion. I'm calling for an expert report to be prepared for the council to consider. This will give the council full view of the risk management in practice. And if there's nothing to see here, that's a good outcome too. So for your consideration, please, councillors.
All right, thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll now put notice of motion 1095 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Mayor will decide. So I've got the deciding vote now. I'm going to let that report go through. Oh, and the lights are off. It's an act of God if ever we've seen one. Yeah, right.
And you just call the decision?
Okay, so sorry. So what happened, just in case you missed that, we had a tied vote and then I used my mayoral vote, casting vote to break the tie to support that notice of motion in asking for. Thank you. All right. And then for some reason the lights went off. We'll move on to notice of motion 1096 from Councillor Colin Ross. Councillor Ross, can you present your notice of motion, please?
I move the following notice of motion that council stops the removal of the Heritage Springs streetlights in the Heritage Springs estate, that council retains the unique heritage streetlight fittings and finds a solution to fitting these old street lamps with new LED light globes or appropriate light globe options, and provides council with a report that includes solutions.
Thank you, Councillor Colin Ross. Do I have a seconder for that notice of motion? I see Councillor Cameron. Councillor Ross to speak first.
In introducing this to my fellow councillors, I hope they support looking into this situation that's come about. I think council and Cardinia Shire is a unique home where over 100,000 residents reside. The unique character and developments of the estates give residents a choice where to live. Sometimes estates have unique features and different options for property owners to purchase. In Heritage Springs and Lakeside and other different areas and estates, they have special features that developers and purchasers have bought into. In particular, the Heritage Springs estate, as one of these estates, has had literally millions of dollars invested into individualising this estate to make it special and a little bit unique. And when this happens, often council asks developers who are going to put in non-standard poles and erect different fittings to foot the bill for those extra sort of additions. And in addition to this, what they do is they ask the developer to provide extra funding towards the decorative lighting fund towards these things. And in this particular estate, there was 493 decorative lights put up. As of the other day, there was 375 of those had been removed, which left only 118. So the fund that was put aside to help retrofit, to replace lights and look after these lights was still there for the whole lot of the lights. Unfortunately, probably about 80% of them are gone. So that fund still will sit there. And in the fund, I believe, up until about 2 years ago, had upwards of about probably $900,000 in it, and this estate had put in over $100,000 towards that. With my notice of motion, what I'm looking to do is, one, is to stop the removal of the remainder of the street lights. Two, to retain those lights and look for some solutions, which I've been told by residents who have done a whole lot of homework in this area, but our staff will be able to do it as well. Look into replacing these LED light globes or something appropriate with those. And in some of my councillors shared, they would really like a report to come back to council, including the solutions to these, so we can have a look at those solutions. I'm looking for support on this. I know the residents in the community, I don't want to see these sort of things that developers put in money for to go to waste. Cardinia Shire has unique areas where some people can purchase whatever they choose to buy into. And when you purchase and buy into it, you actually pay the extra money as in part of buying your blocks or your houses, you buy into these things. I would hate to think that we turn into an area, everyone agrees with using less electricity or emitting less carbon, making everything more streamlined, but not at the behest of just cutting everything down and going for an option that wasn't appropriate in the area. Our council plan, a livability plan, actually talks about retaining the unique nature of our areas and the uniqueness of them. And some of these areas contain things like heritage poles, which are really unique. And we'll look into the solutions. I hope my fellow councillors see this. I see this as the tip of the iceberg. We have got some beautiful estates in Cardinia Shire. I would hate to think that we put through any energy efficient things and just decide that SB AusNet shares with us that you just can't replace those. So they just have to go and we'll put in whatever fits in there and the whole lot of it. That will lose some of the unique character of our area, and I would hate to see that. We are very special and we need to retain that specialness. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Councillor Colin Ross, for your comments. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Kay Cameron.
Thank you. I reserve my right to speak.
Thanks, Councillor Cameron. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak? Councillor Davies?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross and Councillor Cameron. If I may, can I please put a question to our CEO?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Jeffs, given there's been revisions to the wording in Councillor Ross's motion, including as late as 6 o'clock tonight, with the motion as listed as is, are there cost implications from the motion as listed? And if so, what are these? And in asking for the report now, would I be correct in the understanding that no significant spending will be required before the council actually considers more information being presented in that report? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, and through you, Mayor. So, Councillor Davies, we won't have an understanding of costs until we write the report with options and solutions as presented, and no further costs will be incurred on this in this estate until that report's presented.
Thank you, Carol. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Jeffs. I'm certainly willing to support Councillor Ross's motion. It is quite a wordy one, but essentially he's just trying to give the community voice. So we're asking for a bit more information, and I'm certainly, always willing to support another councillor that's trying to be a little bit more diligent and really make sure they do the right thing. So I do congratulate Councillor Ross, and I also want to congratulate the community that did reach out to us, because we're only as good as the information we have, and so thank you to everyone that's taken interest and provided their feedback. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you. I also support the report. Can I just ask the question, timeframes of that report coming back to a council meeting? What month will that come?
Through you, Mayor, we aim to have that back at the next ordinary council meeting.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross, for raising this notice of motion. Look, I too am happy to support your notice of motion, and I look forward to seeing back a report that explores the options that are on hand to retain the existing light fittings. There has been community sentiment that's really come forward to say they would like to see those retained. So I'd like to see what the report suggests of what solutions may be at hand, but just noting also, that there is requirements with AusNet if we want to keep them as a contractor maintaining these lights, but this report should be able to cover all those bases so we can make an informed decision in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll support Councillor Ross's notice of motion. I'd just like to note that there are a lot of these lights have been removed already. So we're talking about a lot of them have already been taken down, and there's not a lot left in comparison to what were there in the first place. And I would like to see the report come back and see what we can do with the remaining lights, and maybe around the area of the shopping centre and in that main area of Heritage Springs is probably a rightful place to have these decorative lights to be remained if we can find a way to put new globes in them. And make them efficient if we possibly can, with the costs involved, I imagine so. So I'd like to see the costs and the time frame as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, fellow councillors, for considering this item and looking at it in the holistic view that you do and the different sides you look at it from. Look, the existing 118 lights that are left, I feel extremely confident that the people who live in the estate have actually contributed to the decorative lighting fund enough that hopefully the budget will come in with inside what they've got sitting there, so that the rest of the Shire won't have to pay extra money for these lights in this estate. So I'm sincerely hoping that with the stopping of the removal and the retaining of them, and with some solutions coming, we'll get a really good fit that'll work. The community will finish up being able to be proud of their estate still. They won't come down, and hopefully this sets a standard for the rest of the Shire, that if you've got things special in your estate, that you might be able to keep them if it's really dear to your heart, and your councillors will stand up for you and be able to help you retain them too. I look for the support from my fellow councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Colin Ross. We'll now put your notice of motion 1096 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cameron. Would you like to speak to that item? I'm happy to do that again. I made a mistake.
Yes, I would like to speak. Thank you.
Of course.
The manner in which these light fittings have been handled is tantamount to absolute vandalism, and the replacements are not even in heritage style. If anybody's bothered to go and have a look and drive around, they have been pretty much trashed. So these are beautiful light fittings and are the same light fittings that Melbourne City Council have. And I just think that the contractor needs to be held accountable for the actions of what they've done to these light fittings. And it is quite clear that they have made no attempt to make any investigation into the easiest way to replace the globes. And if you YouTube it, you can see that it's pretty easy. So I think that they need to be held accountable, and we need to make sure that they are. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you. I'm just going to ask the gallery to be quiet, please. Thank you. I want to apologise for not giving you an opportunity to speak, so thank you for speaking up. We're going to put that back to a vote again because it was improper of me to miss out Councillor Cameron's contribution to that discussion. So, Councillor Ross, we will now put your notice of motion 1096 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors, and I apologise for that error. All right, we'll move on to notice of motion 1097. Councillor Davies, can you present your notice of motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. As listed, I'm moving that notice of motion 1097, that a report is presented to Council regarding all aspects of community engagement following Council's April 2022 resolution to item 6.4.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder for that notice of motion? No seconder. There is, I see, Councillor Graham Moore as a seconder. Okay, Councillor Davies, please speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Whilst Councillor Ross has already moved a motion regarding Heritage Springs and the streetlights, I'm moving this as a separate motion trying to separate the issue about the community engagement. I'm calling for another report because the community have said there was no engagement. Is this true? If it is, how did this happen? So this should be a smaller task than the task ahead in terms of assessing the lighting design, but I do believe that the council need to establish why the community is saying there was no engagement and work out what we need to fix and to make sure things are better next time if they need to be. So whilst I haven't specified a time frame, perhaps I could put to the CEO for approval that if this motion is supported, could this report potentially please be issued with the other report about the lighting? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll go to your seconder, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to second this notice of motion about the community engagement of this particular item. Yes, well, I'd like to see a report also to see how in depth the community engagement was on this particular item, and bring it back to council to see who's right and who's wrong on this particular item, because I don't know. I know that we've had reports from our staff, and I respect them wholeheartedly. But I just want to I'd like to see a report brought back. It wouldn't hurt to do that to see how far the engagement went with this particular item. I would like to see a positive outcome for our staff here, and see that we have dotted every I and crossed every T when it comes down to the community consultation on this particular item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to Councillor Davies to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I am seeking your support in a separate report specific to the community engagement associated with the Heritage Springs street lighting concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davies. We'll now put your notice of motion number 1097 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Moving on to notice of motion 1098. Councillor Graham Moore, can you move your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. it's with honour that that the officers engage with the Cooyarrup Bowls Club and the local community to explore ways in which the name Ray Brown can be honoured through the naming proposal at the Bowls Club in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor Moore to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, this is a very honourable thing for me to do. Being my fellow councillor, my past fellow councillor, Councillor Ray Brown, was we work very, very closely together in the Port Ward area, and I believe, as Councillor Cameron has stipulated so far, that the Bowls Club there is nearly it's well and truly on its way, and it's in its location. This is only a report. I just want to bring to attention the name of Ray Brown, how it may be celebrated. And I'll read what I sent an email off to a resident today from there. I'm going to read just a little bit from it. My thoughts and actions are only to raise the question to local community, including the Cooyarrup Bowling Club Committee, on how and where Ray Brown's name may be celebrated in some respectful way in the near future. Noting Councillor Ray Brown was instrumental in securing the funding required to construct the new pavilion, and I must emphasise on the new pavilion, not an old pavilion, not a pavilion that's been there forever and a day. This is a new pavilion. And my proposal and notice of motion will read the intention to include the community into the decision-making process. It is not my intention to be specific in any decision that the community may resolve. And thanks again for your interest in this matter. I'm the actual Ray Brown's family I know very, very well, and they don't know I'm doing this. This is like a bit of a surprise, and my wife Sue is a very good friend of Alan Brown, and so I thought this was a tribute to someone who worked extremely hard without Councillor Ray Brown's drive, passion to promote this upgrade of this pavilion. It would not have happened. We wouldn't have got the Growing Suburbs funding. And on Neri's passing, on the days, I remember it so well. And most of the councillors here will know this. Remember how emotional it was on those times. There are 7 councillors at least in here. There's 6 here tonight that were here at the time. And it was with his drive, we got the Growing Suburbs fund from the state government, and it's a $2.7 million build, and I think it's a fantastic thing. How the committee and the community want to celebrate him, they may not. I'm not driving a reason of why or when. It's just a matter of I'd like to see something happen somewhere, at least a report come back from our staff to to find some way, if we can, to acknowledge and remember our past councillor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Jeff Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank you to Councillor Moore for raising this notice of motion, which I fully support. You know, Councillor Ray Brown was a great advocate for his community down there for a long time before he became a councillor as well. You know, he was involved many years, you know, advocating for Cooyarrup and the surrounding suburbs and communities down there. You know, and as Councillor Moore put out, it's important to note I can totally support the sentiment that if it wasn't for his advocacy for this building, we wouldn't have received the funding. We wouldn't have this wouldn't have gone on the table when it did. He was a bit of a bull when it came to pushing for his projects down there. Look, it was an honour to work alongside Ray for these years because he was highly intelligent, articulate. He was also a bit of a bulldozer as well when he needed to get his own way done. But that served his community well down there, and I think it would just be a great testament to honour him in this. And I'd just like to note that at the time several of us were at Comley Banks at the opening of the Comley Banks Pavilion, and part of that opening they had, because that came through Growing Suburbs Fund, they announced the next round of Growing Suburbs Fund, and that was just after he had passed, and they announced that it was, you know, that the the Bowls Club down at Kooyarrup was going to receive funding for that, so it was secured that we were going to make this happen. And at the time, I think I looked across and spoke to yourself and other councillors. Go, you know, this is a good opportunity in this, and before the end of this council term, to put this proposal forward. And I would like to see that happen. As we spoke about the Rob Porters earlier, I just think it would be good for future generations to know when they ask the question, you know, who is the Ray Brown? They just go, well, he came in there and he fought hard. He secured this and made this happen. And yeah, I think it would be a good testament. So I support this going out for the community consultation and explore ways that we can honour that. Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor Ross.
I'll just let you inside with a little bit of information. I was really close with Ray, who used to ask me we used to chat on the phone a lot of the time. When you actually shared, Jeff, that came through, I actually was in connection with Ellen on the phone anyway. And before he passed away, he actually found out that the money went through. So Ellen was there. She answered his phone and I said, can you just let him know that this went through? So he's probably looking down now, watching it being built with a real smile on his face that he made a difference. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I see Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. Whilst I didn't work with Councillor Brown for long, I do have a story. I haven't shared it with anyone, and most of you worked with him longer and knew him better. But given this motion, I feel it's now appropriate, and Councillor Moore has supported me in sharing a story. Councillor Brown is a colleague that I respect and I did miss. Early on, I was definitely an energetic yet experienced and naive councillor. And at one of our very public meetings, I did get a bit carried away with points of order and making breaches of what is considered normal councillor behaviour. Nothing too bad, but not great. And it's on YouTube for anyone who wants to watch it, but please don't. And whilst I stand by my intent, which was trying to show the world that I was going to be a politician with integrity, it wasn't smart, it wasn't professional, and it wasn't the standard I'd set for myself. And unlike some of you, Councillor Brown actually never said anything. He didn't tell me off, he didn't shame me or glare at me or be passive aggressive about it. But I knew he was extremely disappointed, and truth be told, I was too. So a few weeks later, after a council briefing where I'd been having a bit to say, but constructively this time and a whole lot more diplomatically, Councillor Brown came up to me after, a huge smile. "Well done, Steph, well done." And we were standing right over there. And at first I thought, don't you hate me? You know, is he being sarcastic? And I was so new to being a councillor, I'd already spectacularly stuffed up. And on the inside, I was dealing with so much insecurity about who am I to even get elected and what am I contributing? But on reflection, I've realised that wasn't sarcasm. I know now that that was his wisdom and his leadership. He was an older, wiser and caring colleague and who was looking out for me. And not all councillors have each other's back, but he had mine, and he didn't need to do it, but he chose to encourage me. He chose to steer me the right way. And Councillor Raymond Brown was a decent human. I'm extremely grateful. That vote of confidence, that support, it actually did mean a lot. And he did so much more for Kooyarrup too than any of us could probably say. My story is such a small one, but I do hope in speaking to it that his character can shine through. One of Councillor Brown's young grandsons summarised their relationship beautifully with footy stories. He says Councillor Brown would say, "See the ball, get the ball," and repeatedly. And I think that's true about pretty much everything in life. And I'm really proud of Councillor Moore moving this motion to establish a formal legacy for his dear friend and colleague. I'm proud that we can investigate options because that's all we're doing here. We're investigating options to honour Raymond Brown. Clearly a treasured husband, father and grandfather, a hardworking local government councillor, committed and loved community representative, 2011 Cardinia Shire Citizen of the Year and a decent human. Gone but not forgotten, and Councillor Moore absolutely has my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Are there any other councillors? I see Councillor Carol Ryan.
Through you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of working with past Councillor Ray Brown. He was very witty. He had a very warped sense of humour. He reminded me so much of my father. That's probably why we got on so well. And we'd have moments where we would do debriefing after council. There was 3 of us, maybe 4 of us, and he'd often say things like, I don't think you really should have said that. I would have said it this way. So what I learned from Councillor Brown was that, Ray Brown, that wisdom does come with age. And he taught me a lot about self-preserving and also interacting that strength that a lot of people don't recognise, but he recognised it, and he was that type of person that saw good in everybody and drew out all the talents that you probably didn't push yourself to the limit, but Ray Brown always pushed you to the limit, and that's how he operated as a councillor. He was determined with his advocacy. He was very strong with his advocacy, and he didn't hold back on anything. And I think he surprised us sometimes with some of the things he did come out with, but it was all in good faith, and he always had the community at his best heart. And I think I found that he was my best mate on council, mainly because I could talk to him about things that probably he saw that no one else saw, that encouraged that. And I saw that in the community, in how he interacted with the people in the community, and how he took that time to listen and try and encourage. And I also saw him a lot work with the youth with me at the My Place. He came down quite a few times with me, and just his knowledge, sharing that knowledge with the youth was absolutely wonderful. So, and I think that they've gained something and some of that wisdom from Ray Brown, and I think that he will be well remembered, and I will look forward to this report and see what options we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this? I see Councillor Kay Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to anything around the bowling club for Ray Brown, the club committee and members of the community are not in favour of the bowling club specifically having Ray Brown's name on it. They are thinking that it would be more in keeping with the community hub to be called the Ray Brown Community Hub. So it's not something that the committee and some community members are happy to support in relation to the bowling club only. And as it's been stated, his overall commitment was to the community rather than exclusively to the bowls club. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I'll go back to Councillor Moore to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your lovely stories about Ray. And I know that it interjects a memory bank. This is 3 years in the making. I remember that day, Councillor Springfield back at James Bath, when that was announced, and was so elated with that. And look, I acknowledge that Councillor Ray or Ray Brown in the community wasn't liked by everybody. Sometimes he was hard to like. I had the same problem myself. So he's hard to like, but really deep down he had a heart of gold, and he did a wonderful job in the Coorab area. And whilst I do acknowledge that some people in the community there don't think he should be honoured or respected in this way, and I'm not saying, I'm not driving that to be that way. I'm just saying I want a report brought up to see what the real community, I mean, we're going to find out who they really are, want to do in this space. And if it's only the community hub, if that's what the community want, well, that's their prerogative. But I just think it's why I brought the bowling club up is because of the drive that Ray had behind it all those years gone by. And like I said, as Councillor Springfield eloquently put it, it wouldn't be there without his drive. And that's the new pavilion. We're not talking about something of past gone by. This is something that's brand new, and therefore it wouldn't be there in that area. So I think, I know I've left it for a long time, but I've left it for a reason to get it to this point. And I thought, well, now's the time to to do it before we get out of this election series. But thank you, councillors, for your kind words. It was really nice to hear from you. I was lucky, very lucky, to represent you councillors at Ray Round's funeral and speak on your behalf, and I felt very fortunate to be allowed to do that on the day. So I allow you to do that today, which is really nice as well. So it's great stuff. Anyway, hopefully you'll support this notice of motion. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We'll now put notice of motion 1098 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to notice of motion 1099. I have Councillor Springfield. Can you please present your notice of motion?
Thank you, Mayor. My motion states that Council amends the temporary community advertising signage policy to allow consideration of events that may fall outside of Cardinia Shire. This consideration will only be applicable for events or community organisations that have a strong and established connection with residents and communities within Cardinia Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Do I have a seconder for that notice of motion? I see Councillor Davies first. Councillor Springfield to speak first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this just came about only last week, and look, we've had a temporary signage policy in place since 2019, which is an important thing. We need to have policies in place. It can't be a free for all, the Wild West, so to speak, on many aspects of this. But look, we haven't. The truth is, we haven't necessarily been actively enforcing it or engaging with community about it, and so there has been a bit haphazard, going on around the hills for a while. But we have recently decided to do that, and I appreciate that it's necessary. But in that, the Macclesfield Primary School. Now, Macclesfield Primary School is just over the border in Yarra Ranges Shire, but Macclesfield's a tiny little town, right? It doesn't have the next neighbouring closest town of Monbulk's about 10, 15 kilometres away. Like, they don't have any catchment of parents and students there. The greatest, more than 80% of the families that attend Macclesfield Primary School are within the Ranges border in Cockatoo, Emerald or Gembrook and driving past. So they put an application in for temporary signage to advertise their open day at one of our approved sites in Avensley, which is right at the entryway for Macclesfield Road for their school. It's the road that everyone drives down to go there. But they were knocked back because they fall outside of Cardinia Shire. Now, that's true. Our officers have done their job. They've done their job. They follow the policy, and the policy states has to be in Cardinia Shire. So why I've brought this forward is just to allow consideration for events and organisations such like this that really have a strong connection, and I feel deserve to be able to access our temporary advertising policy locations, just so we can amend the policy slightly. And I appreciate the reason the policy's been in place is because it's not for everyone to come and advertise. We need to prioritise our residents, but I think this will allow us to better focus on these. Really, it's going to be a very small percentage. There might not be any other events that come through besides Macclesfield Primary in the future that will be applicable for this, but this will allow consideration for them into the future if we can pass this tonight. So thank you, Mayor. This a motion I put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to the seconder of this notice of motion, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. So I actually grew up in the hills, and I do empathise with this situation. And whilst Macclesfield Primary is Yarra Ranges territory, it's on our border. The feeder kinder is Avensley, which is Cardinia Shire. These communities are used to working together. We're all one, and I believe they were all part of Shire, Sherbrooke, that pre the amalgamations in the early 90s when we were all at primary school. So I'm really surprised our policies and procedures didn't have that flexibility to respond to this situation. So absolutely, I support this. Well done, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this notice of motion? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Jeff Springfield to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I realise it's last item for a busy night. It has been a long council meeting night, but I appreciate councillors listening to and considering this final notice of motion for the evening. Again, I ask everyone to please support this. And it's just, there may be other instances that will come up in the future. We don't know. It doesn't have to be just about Macclesfield Primary, but it would really be doing the community a great justice to and this group, because they're a small primary school that are struggling with numbers, for them to be able to advertise on their open day at this corner, at this prime location for their entryway to the school would be really appreciated. So please, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. We'll now put your notice of motion 1099 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Now, I do note that the hour is very late, so I will be quite brief with the mayoral minute. Councillor Owen, you mentioned the Stan Henwood Award winner, Dot Griffin. So, of course, on behalf of Council, we want to formally congratulate Dot Griffin for winning that award. I also want to thank Bev and Nick Henwood. Nick Henwood spoke on the night and spoke very, very well, representing his family, and he's someone who I know personally and used to play football with. So I want to say congratulations, Nick, and thank you to the whole Henwood family for continuing to support that. And the only other thing I will mention, because it is quite late, I do want to acknowledge with pride 3 locals who received a Medal of the Order of Australia in the recent King's Birthday Honours List, which is a significant achievement and should be formally recognised. Eric Bumstead from Guys Hill, who has been very active in the Upper Beaconsfield community, including being captain of the CFA for many years, plus many other achievements. We say congratulations to you. Max Papley from Bunyip, previous councillor and mayor, prominent local businessman, chairman of Lang Lang and District Community Bank for many years, chair of the Lang Lang Rec Reserve Committee. We say congratulations to you, Max, and we wish you well. If someone could please pass that on to him. And of course, our very own Rob Porter, who has been acknowledged in this chamber tonight with the reserve naming and in previous months with his many achievements being read out. We know he's no longer with us, so we say congratulations to his lovely family. We want to extend heartfelt congratulations, including to the families of each person, and advise a letter of congratulations will be sent out on behalf of our council to those people. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers, and thank you, those members of the public in the gallery tonight. That concludes our meeting. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.